All right, everybody, it's time for Scholars of Sketch, where Tony and I discuss certain segments of sketch comedy. We are up to year 1984 through 1986 of SNL, the weird years where they really tried to get some stars and not really that successful. Have you seen these episodes before, preparing for this episode?
You know what, I have, but it's like I didn't like when you watch them as a kid. You don't have any context. You don't know what the turmoil was like going behind the scenes. You don't know about the shakeup in the casts. You just know about certain sketches. I know about "You Look Marvelous" because that everybody was quoting that back then as a kid. And then I knew like Hulk Hogan and Mr. T hosted an episode, and I was pumped for that because as a kid, those guys were like larger than life. You know what I mean? So that's really all I was aware of. And then I was aware of Anthony Michael Hall being a cast member because he was 17. I thought that was amazing. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
I was like, whoa, a 17-year-old, He was like the youngest one since Eddie Murphy, who joined the cast at 19. But, and I guess to this day, he's still the youngest cast member ever. But, yeah, that's all I pretty much all was aware of. Because, we were both kids back in the mid-'80s. I mean, we don't really, you're just kind of, casually aware of stuff. I didn't really start watching Saturday Night Live on a semi-regular basis until I got a little older. You know what I mean?
I wasn't until 89 is when I really started watching.
Right, you're a little too young. If you could make it till like 11:30, you were like, you were a trooper. I'd always fall asleep like 10 minutes into Saturday Night Live if I can manage to stay up late, late enough to watch it.
Yeah, I think the very first episode I saw was the Bruce Willis one in '89, and I made it to Weekend Update, and I was like, yeah. And then... But
every time I had a sleepover, we always tried to watch Saturday Night Live.
Yeah,
we never really did it.
That's the glory of VHS later, is that you could just save it.
Right.
84, 85 is the year where NBC decided to try to save the show. Spent a lot of money on getting bigger name cast members, established actors. The problem with that is they ran out of money by the end of the season. Instead of 20 episodes, which still seems really low for SNL back then, they were only able to do 17 episodes. Did you see the 3 that they canceled?
I heard about them. Let me see if I could. Hold on. Let me see if I can. I found them somewhere. Here they are. Yeah. So they canceled John Candy and Eugene Levy.
Oh, that would have been. And Hall & Oates. That quadruple duo. Oh, that would have been amazing.
Right. And they canceled Joe Piscopo and David Letterman.
I could do without Piscopo, but I wanted to see Letterman. He was at his peak of like coolness right around this time. Yeah,
no, you're right. Yeah, he was like the late night show to watch, and there wasn't really a whole hell of a lot of competition back then. So it was like he was doing something, super NBC. So it's like, it would definitely be cross promotion. Why not? The fact that they didn't have him on is just so odd.
Yeah, it's I don't know. By the 90s, I think he was so pissed off at NBC that he was never going to do it. But this is like that brief window where you could have got him to host. Have they ever had anybody, any talk show host besides Conan O'Brien host SNL?
Probably. I don't recall specifically. I think they had Jimmy Fallon come back on.
No, I don't. Okay, that to me that doesn't count because no, Conan was a regular cast member too. Well, not a regular cast member, but he was a regular staff member. I was just curious about like the one-offs. We never saw Craig Ferguson, who I think would have been genius. But yeah, David Letterman, maybe he wouldn't have been the best at remembering stuff. He's kind of like just a congenial host. I don't recall him really doing sketches that were scripted.
Yeah, well, the thing when you have the whole week to study, I mean, look, they have all these hosts who've never done live TV before do it. You know what I mean? So I can't see him being. I don't know that he would knock it out of the park. But I can't think of him being any worse than any other celebrity guest hosts.
Yeah. There's some hideous ones. So this is the year that they decided to add Billy Crystal, from Spinal Tap, Harry Shearer, and Christopher Guest, and Martin Short and Rich Hall, who all were somewhat established. And I think it's a pretty good season, but you can tell that they left the rest of the cast in the dust.
Yeah, so they fired Dick Ebersol fired Robin Duke, Brad Hall, and Tim Kazurinsky, and he brought back Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Mary Gross. That's got to be weird for Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I mean, her I don't know if she was married to Brad Hall back then.
I think at this point they had gotten married. Yeah.
Okay, so it's got to be weird. Now he fired her husband, and she stays on the show. You think she would have left in solidarity, but. Well, paycheck's a paycheck. You guys got to earn money. What
yeah, I forgot Belushi was added to the season last year and then became a regular. Then they added Pamela Stevenson, which I think her and Rich Hall were on not necessarily the news on the BBC. Right. And I couldn't tell you anything that Pamela Stevenson has ever done. But Rich Hall's always been kind of one of those cool guys that would do specials on like Showtime or HBO. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, and that's I know him peripherally from that kind of stuff as well, just from like little segments he had when I would occasionally be able to watch HBO when I go over to my grandparents' house and they'd have it. But yeah, that's how I was familiar with him as well. And I think Harry Shearer was on some seasons earlier, but just as like wasn't he like a cast member? And when I want to say maybe the early '80s,
it was
for a little while.
I want to say it was 79, 80. He was a semi-regular and quit. And then came back and quit again. I met Harry Shearer just very, very briefly when he was hosting a movie debut in Monterey. That is the smallest man I've ever seen in my life who wasn't actually a hobbit.
He is tiny. Yeah, it's funny. But he left this season, mid-season, around January. What he cited as creative differences, and his exact quote is, I was creative and they had differences.
I think I've heard that he's a total prick, and I heard he was a pain in the ass during the showing of the movie. I just kind of just stood there in silence while everybody bought popcorn and just walked in. And I think I don't understand why he says the creative differences, because you can see Martin Short and Billy Crystal are working their fucking asses off in this season. There's some legendary sketches in this. It's not very well remembered, but do you remember the ridiculous one where they were doing Password? And Christopher Guest was a guy from India, and he kept saying words that made no sense, like, what's the thing that you put on your sandwiches? And he goes, Jabuti! And Billy Crystal as not Harry Connick Jr., what do I think? Sammy Davis Jr. Kind of just looks at the camera and is like, what the fuck just happened? Jabuti!
I don't recall though, but that's I have seen him do the Sam Davis Jr. character a number of times.
Yeah, this discussion came up recently about blackface in entertainment, especially back then, and I think the problem is if it's in ill intent. Like Billy Crystal's obviously doing a loving homage to Sammy Davis Jr. It wasn't to mock or do stereotypes of black people. That's the big difference.
Well, and what do you do if you don't have any black cast members?
Well, maybe hire some. I don't think
true.
Maybe he was nervous about replacing him with replacing Eddie Murphy. Like people were just like, oh, he's just a token black guy. That's maybe what was his worry was.
Well, I mean, he would have loved to have had Eddie Murphy on, but Eddie Murphy left, and Joe Piscopo left after Eddie Murphy left because he didn't want to be on if Eddie Murphy wasn't on.
Right?
So,
is it weird to think?
Not that Dick Ebersol didn't want him on.
It's weird when you look at the history of those two. Joe Piscopo was kissing Eddie Murphy's ass the whole way since the day he basically debuted, and Eddie Murphy was like, "No, we're good. We don't need to ever work on a project together."
Yeah, it's weird that he was trying to ride his coattails, man. Not like Eddie Murphy was putting him in any work for him. Not like he was putting him in any of his movies or anything like that. Right. So it was so odd.
I'm looking at this, and I didn't realize that there is a one major writer that would be added to this season, and it's not the one that you're thinking of, probably Larry David, but Jim Downey, who became the head writer for years. I didn't know that he went this far back.
Yeah, me neither.
Wow. Is Jim Downey the one that was in Billy Madison, who tells them that we're all dumber for listening to your... Is that the guy?
I think so. You know what? I think so.
Yeah,
Larry, not 100% sure, but...
Larry David was on for one season. He got one sketch on. And I'm pretty sure it's the one where it's a World War II sketch, and Martin Short doesn't know how to take stairs up. Do you remember that one?
No,
they're all like everybody in his troupe is shot except for Martin Short, but he's an idiot and he has never taken a flight of stairs before. So they're all trying to tell him how to do this, and they finally get so pissed off at him that they just shoot him. Just get to the stairs and call for help. It's like I don't know how to do these. You idiot. Yeah, You Look Marvelous is probably the most famous thing to come from this. The synchronized swimming is the one that always plays. Sketch. Yeah, that one's great. I'm not much of a swimmer.
Yeah, because I was aware of those before I even know much about the cast. You know what I mean? Because I've always seen those. They're always on best of reels. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. Especially anything throughout the '80s that always appears on the best of reel in the '80s, and for good reason. It's hilarious.
And then there's Fernando. Oh, he was the Marvelous one. Ed Grimley debuts. I'm trying to think of some of the other reoccurring sketches. This season didn't seem to be too big on those.
Yeah, apparently, Dick Ebersol wanted to do a lot of like the pre-recorded bits. That was his thing. He wanted to like kind of, which is ridiculous because it's called Saturday Night Live, and they've always had pre-recorded bits on there, just to kind of like give people, give the cast more time to set up, give them more time to do a stage setting, etc. But he wanted to like almost primarily focus on that. Well, like the show's called Saturday Night Live for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, when Mad TV did that, that killed the show.
Yeah, so it's I mean, there's so much bizarre stuff that happened behind the scenes, which I was never aware of as a kid. I didn't realize Jan Hooks, auditioned to be on that cast and the next cast, and then he didn't actually even get hired till like season 12. But
yeah, and Kathy Najimy was one of them, I think, as well.
Yeah, so they had both auditioned for the spot for Robin Duke's spot that when she got fired.
God, I thought that Robin Duke was. That's so weird.
But they both lost to. They lost to Stevenson. She was the one they hired,
and she wasn't funny. I don't remember a single fucking thing that she did. She was just hot, I guess. Not to diminish her talents. Maybe she's funnier on the BBC, but she was not funny on this.
Mm-hmm. No, like she was relegated to the roles that they would normally put writers in. You know what I mean? Like when they needed like somebody else to be like kind of like an extra on screen.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? That was pretty much, from what I've seen, that was pretty much her roles. They're like almost like a straight man.
And Rich Hall wasn't really a cast member in the normal sense. I don't recall him in hardly any sketches. It was mostly just those bits that he would do during Weekend Update. He was infamous for creating the word sniglets, which is a nonsense word meaning everything and nothing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he was in a few sketches, but as a peripheral character, he didn't have any standout reoccurring characters on his own.
No.
He was in a lot of the pre-recorded segments. He was like the Saturday Night News host. For that season.
Do you remember when he played Doug Flutie and Desmond Tutu was played by Eddie Murphy and he accidentally melts his award?
No.
Oh my god, you gotta see these sketches. It's hard to. These are the seasons they hit away, which it's almost impossible to find. I think they're now on the Peacock app, but that's a disaster. I don't know if you tried it yet, but that is a fucking nightmare to operate around.
No, I mean the fact that they have proprietary ownership, and they won't let YouTube have any of it, kind of really pisses me off.
Yeah, you can only find like a couple of vintage ones, and that's it.
Yeah, I refuse to subscribe to another app just because that's the only way you could find it.
Well, it's almost as if Peacock said, "Hey, everything that works with Netflix's app, let's do the exact opposite and fuck it up."
Yeah, and then another thing, I mean, on an unrelated topic, but NBC Sports is gone now. Everything's going to be on the Peacock app, so they're really good at pushing this app hard. They're really getting really behind this app as hard as possible.
Same thing with CBS. I think they're really starting to put everything behind. It was no longer called CBS All Access. I think it's called Paramount Plus because everything's going to be Plus now.
Oh, God.
Oh, this is weird. This is why I was thinking Rich Hall always reminded me of David Byrne, and I couldn't remember why. And then I didn't realize during the Michael McKean episode he did a parody of
that sketch.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nothing really else sticks out. It's just a normal everyday season. You got some names that kind of... Harry Anderson finally got to be a host instead of doing just his magic sketch. We have the Mr. T. Hulk Hogan infamous episode, the Christopher Reeve episode, where every single fucking sketch is somehow associated with Superman. What else? Yeah, I can see why they had to reconfigure. And this is the season that Dick Ebersol bowed out at the end, and they finally, after... the disaster of what was that show that I sent you? The half hour. What was the one that? Oh my god, I'm having amnesia. Who created SNL? My god. What?
With the one with John Candy, his show?
Yeah, that show that was on NBC for like 6 episodes. I sent you a couple clips of that. Lorne Michaels. Thank God, I remembered. I'm getting worried about my memory, dude. I'm only 44. I shouldn't be having this. But Lorne Michaels did a show on NBC like on Wednesdays, and it only lasted 6 episodes, and I thought it was fucking hilarious, but it was so goddamn weird. No wonder it failed.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's hard to get inventive, and it's hard to gauge an audience. Like they want something new and creative, or they want the same old comfort. The same old things they're used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what else is weird? I can't think of any other time where they would have somebody host the show and then you know what, they did a really good job as host. Why don't you come on as a cast member? Which was the case with Billy Crystal.
Yeah, they
That just
paid
seems so
him
odd.
a lot though. I think they were paying him $75,000 back in a day when 10,000, 15,000 was normal.
No, but I just unheard of now. You would never have somebody host and like, you know what? Why don't you become a regular cast member?
It did happen though. There's a guest on this season that became a cast member in '94.
Really?
Michael McKean.
Huh. Oh, you're right. No, you are right. You're very good. No, that's correct. So it did happen again later. Yeah. But I mean, but certainly Billy Crystal was a little more high profile. No snub against McKean, who was great,
right.
and Laverne and Shirley and Spinal Tap, but no, it was just it's bizarre, and oddly enough during this season where like their host canceled and he did such a great job filling in for the opening monologue,
who canceled? Do you know?
Raymond something or other, or Harold Raymond, or Raymond something or other.
Harold Ramis?
No, it wasn't him. It's a guy I never heard of. He mentions it during the monologue.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember a guy I never heard of. But it's Raymond Wallace or Harold Wallace Raymond. Anyway, he canceled, and but Billy Crystal, such a trooper, does his monologue, which is pretty much is just a stand-up bit, which was great. And then, such a slap in the face after that season. After he upended his life to join the cast this season, he wanted to return the following season, '85, and Lorne Michaels wouldn't hire him. He wanted a whole new, fresh cast.
Wow. Well, that's the problem, though, is that he cut into the budget so bad. So Lorne Michaels was probably thinking bigger than that. But, if he had continued, he wouldn't have done one of the greatest action comedies of all time, Running Scared, which made him a star.
True. But he was like a household name back then in the '80s, pretty much for his sketches, for his him doing Muhammad Ali and Sammy Davis Jr. and and Fernando Lamas character he did. You know what I mean? I can't think of anybody who had such recurring bits and was so well known that you just wouldn't hire him. You know what I mean? It's one thing if he decides to leave on his own, that happens all the time. But you know what I mean? It's like you know what? You're bringing a lot of eyes to the set, but thanks, but no thanks.
It's also one of the few times where they would just sign people for one season. The rule now is they seem to sign you for 6 to 7 with a window of their own to get rid of you after one. Yeah,
and it's next season. It's like a whole, and going into '85, everybody's gone. Everybody's brand new. Nobody's gone. Everybody's gone, including Billy Crystal, who was the only one who really wanted to come back. Everybody else was like, "Nah, I'm good. It's all right. We can." You know what I mean? Because it was such madness working on that show, apparently, that nobody had a problem leaving. Only one who wanted to return was Billy Crystal, and they said no. or Lorne Michaels said no, I should say.
Yeah, I guess. I guess he's still an anchor, though, because, hold on. I said he was going to save a lot of money, but I forgot. There's a few people in the next year's cast who were kind of established already. It couldn't have been dirt cheap.
Yeah, Randy Quaid and Anthony Michael Hall.
They were both established. So yeah, and I still don't know. Did Robert Downey Jr. only get the show because of his friendship with Anthony Michael Hall, or did he get it on his own?
Possibly. Yeah, you know what? I'm not quite sure, to be honest.
Do you want to move on to the next season, or do you have anything else before we shift over?
Oh, no, that's a perfect transition. Might as well move on to the next one.
Yeah, Dick Ebersol's out, went back to NBC Sports. He also had a plan for the show that wasn't going to work, where like you said, it was going to be all tape segments, and they said, screw that. The new show, that was the one with Lorne Michaels, I finally remembered. That failed, and his movie deal really never came to fruition. So he was hired back, and then he just restarted the whole thing. The whole new set, whole new look. I think there's a whole new band and writers. Everything was just completely overhauled. I don't know if anybody...
Soup to nuts. Another thing Dick Ebersol wanted to do, he wanted to have permanent hosts that were just maybe 3 or 4 permanent hosts that would just rotate every week, instead of having what it's been doing and what it continues to do today. He would have 3 or 4 hosts that would just rotate. And that was going to be his thing. That and the pre-recorded segments were a bridge too far, and the network was like, no, we're not having it. So
yeah,
they both agreed to part ways.
Is this the first year with Weekend Update? I feel like it was always called something else.
Yes. So after Lorne Michaels left, they changed it to Saturday Night News. As soon as he came back this season, Brandon Tartikoff hired Lorne Michaels back, and it became Weekend Update again. So yeah, it was for that whatever reason. Dick Ebersol decided to call it Saturday Night News and not Weekend Update.
Huh.
And then as soon as he left, it's Weekend Update again, which makes more sense.
Yeah, it's so strange looking at this cast, and none of them really say comedy except for a few. Joan Cusack was kind of funny. She was a comedic actress, but she didn't write her own material. That's a big thing. Is also they got people who aren't writing their own material and working with a team.
Right.
So you have Robert Downey Jr., Joan Cusack, Anthony Michael Hall, and Randy Quaid, who have no history of sketch comedy. And you have the ones who basically survived were Nora Dunn, John Lovitz, and Dennis Miller before Dennis Miller's brain cracked somewhere along the way and he stopped being funny. What happened to him? He used to be hilarious. He used to be like so hip and cool. Nope.
You know, he just started to do it's more commentary and like social commentary that wasn't really connecting with anybody. He would draw upon these references where like which would go over everyone's head. And then I don't know, he did a stint. He would like do like he would do like I don't know if he did Monday Night Football for a while or One of the Football.
Oh God, that was the worst.
Yeah, and then like they would like the you know, I guess he was a color commentator on those, but he wasn't super knowledgeable about football. Number one, and number two, his co-host didn't find him funny, and he was always stepping over them when and it was just chaos. You know what I mean? He didn't, you know, he was not right for that role, to put it mildly. But you know, apparently this cast, not only were they inexperienced, but you know, they really failed to connect with the audience because of their inexperience in comedy.
Right. I think the only one who connected was Lovitz. Lovitz became so popular this year; he's basically saved the show. Yeah,
and then like you said, Nora Dunn also went with him into the next season as well as Dennis Miller. They're the only three people who did. Everybody else was one and done.
Yeah, Terry Sweeney was known for really good impersonations, but he wasn't necessarily funny. And I could not tell you. Denetra Vance was, I think, more of like a one man or one woman show, like the way John Leguizamo is.
She was famous for her off Broadway stuff. That's how she was. She was more of like a classically trained theater actress.
Right. So yeah, she would do character pieces during Weekend Update, but other than that, it didn't seem like a season where the writers and the cast could not connect. I mean, I'm looking at the writers right here, and these are all classics. A. Whitney Brown, Tom Davis, Jim Downey, Jack Handy. I didn't know Carol Leifer was on the show. Michael Donahue, Robert Smigel started all the way back then. Mark McKinney and Bruce McCullough.
They even had some of the writers that even want to be on The Simpsons, like John Beatty, George Meyer, and John Swartzwelder, all famous for being on The Simpsons, but they really couldn't. They didn't know how to write for this cast. Apparently here it says they didn't know how to write for such an eclectic cast. And the ratings were terrible. They were getting panned by the critics, and because of that, Tartikoff, he was actually considered canceling it in '86.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can see why, and the fact that somehow he was magically able to save the show by restarting again, and Tartikoff trusted him to do it, is a miracle.
Yeah. He put all his faith in Lorne. He was a fan of Lorne. He was a fan of the show. So he's like, all right, Lorne. This was your baby the first time. It's going to be your baby again. It's all going to be on your shoulders. It doesn't work out this season, then it's definitely done.
Yeah, it's so weird that he was so tone deaf on who to cast because he was always keen on this. And then he would do it again in '94 when he cast a bunch of names, established people. It just didn't work.
Right. That's the thing. It's like you either have to trust his vision, and I guess by '94, I guess you just had to trust his vision at that point. He's had the show on for that long. Whereas I guess the first, I don't know, man. I mean, I guess after the first year back at the helm, it's like he really didn't have such a firm ground to stand on as he did the first 5 seasons of SNL, So I guess at that point you really had to just trust his vision and then hope for the best.
Yeah. It's funny that he couldn't get a movie made at all during his time off. But he was able to get a movie made the second he went back to SNL because that's when he got Three Amigos up and running.
Yeah. And then there was, and that's the beginning of a trend of all these SNL, with, I don't know, I'm not sure, when did Broadway video?
I feel like they were doing specials throughout the 80s just to fill in because they didn't have enough episodes. So that's when you started seeing like the best of Jim Belushi, the best of Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy, and stuff like that. And then they started issuing them out on VHS, I want to say around 89, maybe 88. And that's when I first saw the Broadway logo.
Gotcha.
Now it's ubiquitous. He produces so many things.
Oh my God! I mean, Trill on Hulu, Portlandia. He's got his fingers in so many pots in Hollywood. It's crazy.
We have some reoccurring players. A. Whitney Brown. At the time, I thought he was the most boring cast member. As an adult, I kind of get where he's coming from now. But it's really heady. It's not even like a National Lampoon or anything like that. It's something so hip and so smart that I can see why.
It's pretty dry.
Yeah, it's really dry, but it's also really smart. And Al Franken was kind of the same way, but his stuff is a little more accessible. I think that's why he was more successful over the years.
Yeah, he could kind of he has some smart and witty material, but he can kind of be goofy and do enough to grab your attention.
Do you find Father Guido Sarducci funny?
You know what? I didn't find it funny the first time around, and I didn't find it funny in the mid '80s either. And I really don't know. But my mom loved it. I remember.
I know people who love it. I don't get it.
I was like, it's the strangest thing. I was like, I get it. He's Italian and he smokes. But what's funny about that?
My uncle, who's just a few months older than me, dressed as him for Halloween just a few years ago. Weird.
Wow, that's really that's some real inside stuff right there. You're really hoping somebody who's going to understand who you are.
Dan Vitale, I don't remember, but I do know the episode of Mark Maron where he discussed where he was just a complete and absolute fucking disaster. He was drunk off his ass, doing drugs, and he got fired pretty quickly. Damon Wayans is the most famous person, I think, to be fired. Is he? Is he the most famous person to ever be fired? But he did bring him back.
Oh no! I mean, he was fired for that. You could point to one reason why he was fired, but like Chris Farley and Adam Sandler were also fired from SNL.
Oh right,
those are pretty high profile firings.
Yeah,
but not for one particular thing.
Yeah, right. I was going to say because they just stopped being funny. This is because Damon Wayans purposely did something on the air he was told not to do, and Lauren's like, "Fuck, get out of here."
Right.
But he did come back.
Did you know that? They brought him back. They brought him back 2 months later to do stand up.
Yeah, with a new wig.
Yeah. So odd. These are things you wouldn't hear of nowadays. And another thing they don't do anymore. They don't do they had like Sam Kinison come in for a feature stand up. They had Penn Teller come in for a featured bit. They had Dave Wayans come in for a feature stand up. They don't really have anyone do that anymore because I guess nowadays if you have a famous stand up comedian doing coming in to do like a guest host, their monologue is pretty much a stand-up bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's really no need to have a guest stand-up comedian. And also, back in the mid-'80s, stand-up was so hot. I mean, there was like a comedy club in every city, every major market. You know, it was like the biggest thing. You know what I mean? So it kind of made sense at the time. Now it doesn't make so much sense, especially if you're there for one kind of. If you're there for one kind of comedy, having a forced stand-up routine.
Right. Well, even when they had the Magicians for years, the whole 81 to 86 or so was a bunch of weird stuff, but just to fill space.
Right. No, yeah, you're right. And that's really all. Instead of the pre-recorded segments, they were doing some other filler things. You know what I mean? They already had the musical guest who was good for about. Now they narrowed it down at this point to 2 songs. That was the formula. They're doing 2 songs. That's it. But now, you know, because sometimes some of these pop acts that would come on were kind of relatively one-hit wonders, so they only had really an A and a B side to begin with.
Right.
So it wasn't like the early days where they could do 4 or 5 songs. It was like, they don't have that many. They don't have that many in the repertoire.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the cast members now. The actors themselves seem to be fine, but some of the musicians, they're usually like 1 or 2 or nobodies. It's so strange whenever they have a musician host the show, but then they don't do any music. That's strange. When Madonna hosts, but Simple Minds is the guest.
Simple Minds. Yeah. Why didn't they just have her? Exactly. Usually when they have like somebody that famous, you know what? I don't think they had Adele. You know, Adele hosted not so long ago. I think they had a separate musical guest.
Oh, okay.
If I remember correctly. But yeah, but that just makes more sense for them to also. You could double bill it and just pay this person, you know, slightly more than you normally would. You know, it just makes more sense economically.
Chevy Chase, this is his infamous season where he got in deep shit and was only ever allowed on as like he was let on the next year, but Steve Martin and Martin Short had to control him. And then after that, it was just like cameo appearances because he was such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's like, you know, you figured you had enough like you're fully entrenched in show business. You're a bona fide success. It's so weird when people are still that erratic and hard to, you know what I mean, are so self-unaware. And even in this day, you even go back not too far long ago in like Community. It's such a notorious pain in the ass. It's just it's one of those things. It's just you figure like you'd mellow with age at some point, but some people never do.
Yeah, when you tell a cast member who's gay to polish your balls, I think, or wash my balls, you just go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I didn't know this. George C. Scott was originally going to host the third episode, but they got Paul Rubens. Yeah, I'm going to go with Paul Rubens. George C. Scott doesn't seem funny.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there was one sketch sent me with Ed Asner. That was an unusual choice, you know, that, you know, as well.
Actually, Ed Asner, no.
Really...
Did you know that Ed Asner is one of the original Second City cast members?
Oh, that's right. You are correct. You know what? When we did the SCTV episode, I wrote that down, and I remember saying that. No, you are correct. But since then, I don't really think of him as a, you know, I mean, I guess he was relatively funny in the Mary Tyler Moore Show, but I just don't think him as, you know, that much of a comedic actor. But no, you make a good point. I stand corrected.
We get one of the debuts of, I think the greatest host of all time is Tom Hanks. He doesn't do it very often anymore, but back then he was performing every single year, and every single episode is gold. Yeah,
he was one of like the solid five timers club. Him, Steve Martin, always good. Alec Baldwin always knocks it out of the park.
Yeah,
those are definitely consistent hosts. You know, it's weird when that time they didn't have that host, when they had the host cancellation. You think they would have just gotten I had him tip my tongue. I can't remember who's the guy who was on like every season for the first 5 seasons. Why didn't they just have him back?
Well, you mean Buck Henry?
Yes. Yeah. Why didn't they just have Buck Henry fill in? It seems like that's what he was made to do.
Yeah, that or damn it, Paul Simon.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Buck Henry might be a little tough since he lives in L.A. But yeah, Paul Simon. I mean, like he's a native New Yorker. You figure like that would have been like a no-brainer. But
yeah.
I guess I don't know the genesis. I guess it happened such short notice that they had no choice. But...
Yeah. Every season has a weird head scratcher host. One was Ron Reagan. The other was Jerry Hall. What the fuck?
Oh, you mean I assume you mean Ron Reagan Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and who's Jimmy Breslin? I don't know who the hell Jimmy Breslin is. And Catherine Oxenberg, I think, was on a soap. Who's Jimmy Breslin?
Is Jimmy Breslin? Is he like a? That's not Jimmy the Greek, is it?
I'm gonna look right now. He was an American journalist. I have no idea. I'm looking at his face right now. I don't know who the fuck he is.
I was about to say, is he a sportscaster? Is that? That's not Jimmy the Greek.
Nah, I don't see anything. He says he was hosting a show on ABC at the time called Jimmy Breslin's People, where he interviewed poor New Yorkers at home. Okay. That seems like just a weird casting for no reason. Like, why is Billy Martin the final host? Thank God Angelica Houston was there, but she's also out of her element. And
I heard she actually auditioned to be a cast member as well. But
wow.
She eventually went on to just be co-host with Billy Martin. But she also auditioned to be a cast member, but it just didn't work out for whatever reason. Yeah. But it's just so odd. Like some of the choices, some of like the fact that they turned Jen Hook down twice.
Yeah,
she was just so bizarre.
They turned down Jim Carrey.
Oh yeah,
this is so weird. This is the first year that George Wendt hosts, and he would host constantly as not a host, but you know how he kept popping in for the Dot Bears.
He'd be a feature player. Yeah, which is a trend they would continue forward with him as well as other notable cast members, which is a good thing. You know, I mean, especially when you only have so many cast members who could do so many things. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. So it's good to I don't know if that ruffles the cast members' feathers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the fact that they get a ringer to come in and play a part that it's so hard for its cast members to get their material in the air in the first place.
Yeah, that's what the show is drowning in now, though. There's too many cast members. There's also so many cameos.
Yeah.
It's like the Will and Grace era. Remember how every episode had some guest they had to have?
Yeah. So apparently what I've heard, a lot of the current cast members don't like people coming in and pinch hitting to do like Joe Biden or Alec Baldwin, you know what I mean? Even though Trump or Alec Baldwin, they don't like. It's not that they mind it so much. It's just that it really does take. It's so hard for them to get the material in the air, and they have limited time throughout that hour. That it really does, kind of squeeze them out.
Yeah,
especially your featured cast member.
Right, when
It's
they only
almost
have a
impossible for
chance
them.
maybe once an episode.
Right.
I'm looking at this right now. The music this year sucks so hard. the only people here that are cool are George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic, but this is past their prime.
Yeah.
This is not when they're really popular. They become popular like 10 years later. Every time I think of George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic is from PCU.
When did they have Atomic Dog? I mean, I know that I'm not sure if that's an '80s song or not.
I don't know.
That
But
was,
most of their stuff it ended, I would say, around 82, 83 is when he went bankrupt and he had way too many bands going at once. That's why he combined into... Oh, no, it does say 82 was Atomic Dog.
Okay, so that makes a little bit of sense, I guess, because that was a huge song. That was a big hit. That was like probably their biggest hit since the '70s. You know? But that and George Clinton found his newfound love of cocaine and then crack, which he continues to this day. So,
wait, did you say he still takes? Wait, what? He takes it now?
Oh yeah,
isn't he like 80?
He's the only person. Apparently, up to a few years ago, that's the last time I heard. But he's like a functional crack addict.
Oh my god!
The way they have functional alcoholics, that's like kind of like not it's not like a well kept secret. He's been doing it forever.
Wow!
So it is possible to do crack for a long time.
Kids, don't do crack. Don't listen to Tony.
But if you're gonna do it responsibly, the way George Clinton does.
Yeah, however he does it, get his secrets.
No, apparently, in places like Switzerland, Denmark, you have functional heroin addicts.
Oh,
you know
okay.
I mean?
Well, I mean, it's more controlled, probably.
Yeah. Well, at this point, you're only doing it to feed your addiction. You're not really getting off on it anymore. It's just kind of like.
Well, that brings us to the end of those 2 seasons. The disaster that nearly derailed the show. The final episode ends with a sketch where everybody's in the building, it's on fire, and John Lovitz is the only one let out, and they say,
saved.
who will survive the massive burning, which is a really twisted ending.
Yeah. Apparently that was a spoof on the show called Cliffhangers that was out at the time.
Oh, I don't know that
So,
one.
let me see. I mean, I didn't write it down here. Okay. The entire cast is shown to be trapped in a room as a parody of the TV show Cliffhangers. So, yeah, credits rolled with question marks on each name, signaling that viewer didn't know which cast member would be returning the next season.
Yeah.
And cast members were angered by ending added to the sketch, which Michaels has the opportunity to rescue only John Lovitz.
Yeah, you know what's one thing that really hurt the show was that Anthony Michael Hall is credited as a cast member the whole season, but he's only there for a third of it because he had a loophole that if he got a movie offer, he was allowed to leave, and he went to go do Out of Bounds.
Yeah.
And kids, if you've listened to the show before, that's the movie I told Anthony Michael Hall to his face was fucking awesome while I was shaking with nervousness. Tony was there as a witness.
You said that, and then you said, who's the other guy from Weird Science? You're like,
the Chocolate War.
The one movie he did is which was fucking rad. You told me that it appears that was fucking rad, which I thought was funny.
I forgot that there was kids in the audience. I felt a little bad watching the look in their face. Go, oh, and I didn't know what to ask Kelly LeBrock because I didn't really give a shit. I wanted to ask her how bad was Steven Seagal? I'm not going to ask her that, but I did ask her what it was like working with Gene Wilder and oh my god, why is it my brain? Is it going away? I'm turning into Flowers for Algernon? I remember that, but I can't remember. Gilda Radner. I asked her what it was like to work with her, and it was so sad and somber. And then I follow it up with, "Oh yeah, Nancy Michael Hall, Out of Bounds was fucking rad." I was just waiting for her to stop talking. I was like, "Just all right, go get my." You saw how uncontrolled I was shaking so bad.
You know what? I mean, look, at that point, I think Michael Hall was all over the place. He was shot out of a cannon, so it's not really that big of a deal. But it's surprised you didn't go to the I'm like, what's the deal with your baseball cap? You having a bad hair day? What's going on?
Yeah. At least it wasn't the Pauly Shore. We're off topic here, but at least the Pauly Shore was so bad. He didn't give a shit, and he left halfway through, and then came back later.
He barely remembered being in it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like.
Dude, it's just a paycheck. He's just getting a paycheck.
Oh yeah, I was just about to say they're paying him, so he showed up.
Yeah,
they're like, dude, I barely remember doing that. I think I was drunk at the time anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
So that is it for this episode. The next one is Player's Choice. Do you want to do Kids in the Hall next, or the 87 through whatever seasons of SNL?
Well, I guess if you're going chronologically, you do SNL, but
I guess.
doesn't it kind of make more sense to do Kids in the Hall?
I like to bounce in and out. In fact, that we have Mark McKinney and Bruce McCullough leaving SNL at the end of the season and launching Kids in the Hall out of frustration.
What I was just going to tell you is the one pre-recorded segment I saw which really made me laugh really hard featured Bruce McCullough and Anthony Michael Hall when they go to they're hanging out and they go to the Army Recruitment Center and it was like a Just Say No ad.
Oh yeah.
But it was to join the military. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. All right, so we'll do that next. Kids in the Hall. That's going to be a good long. We might have to split. Well, no, we don't have to split in half because it's not a changing cast, and there's the reoccurring sketches. Yeah, we'll just do it all in one lump.
Yeah, I mean, they did part on HBO and part on CBS. So.
Yeah, but I didn't know this that Brain Candy is almost impossible to find. Not on Blu-ray. The DVD is so expensive. So if you can find it somewhere, get it cheap. Take it.
Huh. You know, I always get Brain Candy confused with Strangers with Candy, which I have no problem finding.
Yeah. All right, so that's the next episode. Check us out on Facebook under Hit Rewind Podcast. Tony, thank you for another great episode, and sorry for the long break. What's it been, 3 months, 4 months?
Yeah, the holidays, etc. What are you going to do?
Yeah, we both work retail. It's exhausting. So, hey.
Right.
All right, everybody, have a good night.
Peace.
Hey everybody, welcome to Back in Tunes. I'm your host Michael, and returning to the show after what seems like a very long gap is Andrew. How's it going, Andrew?
Good.
Dude, when is the last time we did an episode together? It feels like it's been at least a year.
Yeah, it feels like a while. I think we did one. I think the last one was probably the Saturday morning cartoon special, which were in air.
Right, I forgot the perfect Saturday morning playlist, which is my little filler between the episodes that me and Jacob do together. But over the years, you and my friend Tony have sat in on episodes and kind of like filled that gap while we wait for whatever episode to come together. And we have focused mainly on the Cartoon Network original series. And this is basically our final wrap-up episode of those. The show will, like I've told listeners before, change into something else at the end of the year. So we just have a small batch of cartoons we want to discuss before we close shop, I guess, or new owners, refurbished. I don't know what you want to call it when it's kind of the same thing. But I want to add a pop culture and video games and, just random stuff into the discussion.
An end to a series.
Yeah, like a nerd culture kind of thing. But you and I were talking like, hey, we should do like little segments here and there where we like just watch an old wrestling, like a Royal Rumble or WrestleMania or whatever, and discuss all the old wrestlers.
Yeah, definitely. It's something we can do, and I'm sure we're glad to be on and to be contributing and geeking out over stuff is always fun.
This episode basically we're discussing Courage the Cowardly Dog, trying to remember all of them, Evil Con Carne, the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and the Adventures of Grim and Evil. Did I get them all? I'm not sure if I got them all.
Yeah, most of the like darker of the originals with the Grim and Evil Con Carne and everything like that. So I believe that's the last little bit of it.
Yeah, well, this was originally supposed to be a Halloween episode, but things happened and we couldn't get that to go in time for Halloween. So hey, we do it now. We'll rerun it for Halloween. Courage the Cowardly Dog is one of the very first, in fact, it might have been the very first thing that I had ever seen of the Cartoon Network. I grew up in a town that just did not carry it. I had to go to the city where a friend of mine lived, and I'm like, holy crap, this is Cartoon Network? And I just went through every VHS tape. I bought a pack of VHS tapes and to record them, but the very first thing I saw was Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Yeah, classic, kind of, for me, it reminded me a lot of kind of those tales, like Are You Afraid of the Dark, where a lot of weird stuff happens into those episodes. With Courage, the cool thing is you always can look forward to something odd, something weird happening. They're kind of course, living on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and whether it be strange transients or strange doctor's visits or aliens, you can always look forward to something weird happening in the episodes.
Yeah, the consistency, of course, is the farm and Muriel, the classic old man, and Courage And basically everything else is like it's a love letter to Twilight Zone, The Outer Limits, any of those horror anthology kind of TV shows, but in an animation form.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those shows too, like kind of like on the brink of like Courage, as a dog doesn't really talk much with the humans around, so you kind of get that's sometimes like realism of okay, like this is a dog, like he can't really talk, you know, he's trying to point things out to them, and he's like and then you know, they have little bits in there where it kind of breaks the fourth wall, and he's talking to the audience at times, or things like that. So it's definitely a little different in that aspect too.
If you were to describe this to somebody, it kind of feels like Scooby-Doo, but it's so wildly different that thematically maybe, but the way they break out the episodes, it's totally different.
Yeah, and you know, unlike Scooby-Doo, Courage is kind of like hated. I mean, at least Eustace hates him in the sense. Muriel kind of is the main keeper of him and the companion, but you know, there's tons of episodes where, you know, he's kind of getting the short end of the stick, you know, getting experimented on, or you know, getting hurt, or things, you know, dropping on his head, and Eustace kind of laughing at him.
Yeah, he's kind of a Wile E. Coyote character, except he's not the villain.
Yeah, exactly.
More of a sad sack. It's as if they took the frustrations of Ren and the pure innocent, like, gumption of Stimpy and combined into one character.
Yeah, I mean, you get really instances in there where he's like the hero. He's, you know, saving Eustace and Muriel for whatever reason, Eustace. And then in other instances too, you know, sometimes they're saving him, or you know, he's kind of getting lucky by having something else kind of weird happen in those episodes. So.
The pilot episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog was nominated for an Academy Award, which might be the only thing that's ever been on. That means Courage the Cowardly Dog somehow had to play first in the theaters. So I'm curious as to what it was put in front of, like what movie.
Yeah, that's interesting. It most likely, you know, probably a short for some kind of movie. I mean, you think back to the time, you know, Cartoon Network type, you know, very possibly could have been some kind of, you know, adaptation of a movie.
You know, I'm just because Warner Bros. Was one of the last few. Well, a little bit of Disney. They did that with the Roger Rabbit cartoons for a while, but animated shorts before films now is kind of relegated just to Pixar.
Yeah, you see that a lot. You know, they have those little collections too. You know, at times where they put all those shorts in kind of a DVD, kind of, you know, squeezing the orange out of those short film juices. But yeah, you see a lot of really cool ones in there. I know that, like, you know, they come, you buy like a specific edition of a Blu-ray, and you know, those short films are included as well.
The show was created by John Dilworth, who never created another series before or after this, which is kind of surprising because Courage the Cowardly Dog would probably be considered one of the top 3 most successful Cartoon Network originals. I'd probably say it's Johnny Bravo, Dexter's Laboratory. Oh no, okay, you have to add Powerpuff Girls, but Courage is really at least in the top 5, and it's just kind of surprising that he isn't interested in doing another series.
Yeah, and it's very surprising, especially because, you know, it was so different than those other shows. You know, Powerpuff Girls, you know, superhero girls battling evil. You know, kind of evil villains, kind of an homage to some of the older, you know, cartoons with superheroes like Batman and Superman. You know, Johnny Bravo, you know, kind of just this happy-go-lucky, kind of thinks he's all that kind of guy. And then Dexter's Laboratory, you know, little nerd. It's always getting picked on, but, you know, extremely smart. And then you kind of have Courage, where, like you said, that Twilight Zone kind of weirdness just comes in, and it's very unique at the time, because I think it really paved the way for a lot of the darker shows. Mm-hmm. You know, Courage was out before, like, Billy and Mandy, or was out. I know we did, I think I mentioned it in a couple episodes before, you know, with, like, regular show, you know, you can always look forward to something supernatural happening, or you can look forward to something weird happening in that show. Or even, like, what is it, Gravity Falls, you know, supernatural type things happening in there, weird stuff happening there. So I think Courage really was the pioneer in those episodes and those shows, because, I mean, you see that in some of today's shows.
This is during the era when it was either all action-oriented shows or homages to old cartoons. And also the look of Courage is very unique. And maybe that's because the creator never really went on to do anything else, that the look and style is very... It's like the way it is with Ren and Stimpy. John Kay had a very particular look and style with his cartoons. It's hard to repeat. Which I don't feel with a lot of the original Cartoon Network stuff. It feels like there's only like 2 or 3 designers. They all kind of look the same.
Yeah, and I remember like very differently with the animation of it. I always remember like the hole in his tooth. Every time Courage is screaming, there's like a random hole in his tooth.
Was there a lot of merchandising for this? Do you remember it all? I don't remember any games or clothing or toys.
That's like repetitive in a sense where like there's little things that change in it every time. There's instances where like you kind of get the Looney Tunes, he gets squashed and his eyes are the only thing that you see, and then he kind of pops up, and then you see other instances where, like I said, the hole in the tooth or anything like that. So it's kind of like a mishmash of a lot of animation styles as well.
Sorry, I'm having a problem with the audio here.
No worries.
Thankfully, I do backup recordings now because this is fudged. Something's wrong with my recorder. The way it interprets power, it for some reason it starts causing static, and I don't know what that is. I do it with the power cord, or I can do it with batteries, and it's still the same problem. Where was I? So unlike Courage the Cowardly Dog, the other shows that we're going to discuss, the ones created by Maxwell Adams, it all has a universal look. It's kind of what. If you were to say, was there an identity for Cartoon Network during this time? Yeah, it's this. It looks just like this. It's the same exact style of humor, story setting, and stuff like that. And Maxwell Adams created like a couple dozen series for Cartoon Network, and it has a whole different vibe than Courage.
Yeah, and those other shows too, they look very similar. You see a teddy bear in one show, and it looks the same exact across all those shows. In a lot of instances, you pick out the animation and you're familiar with it, so that kind of has that continuity with all those other shows as well. Courage is the one that stands alone.
So Maxwell Adams is the guy who created the next few cartoons we'll discuss here, but real quickly I want to run down some of the shows that he worked on before he came over. Twisted Tales of Felix the Cat, which is a really warped, crazy love letter to the old cartoons. Then he signed on with Cartoon Network to create 2 cartoons that we thought about discussing, but I just couldn't get into, was Cow and Chicken and I Am Weasel, which I know they have their followings, but those are so, get under my skin.
Very, very weird, very odd. I remember, really quickly, Cow and Chicken, they had human parents, which is very odd.
Really? How did I not catch that? Maybe it's because the voice of Cow just shattered my eardrums, so I couldn't pay attention to the rest of it.
Possibly. I mean, I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, they had of course it's the old school. You don't show the parents' faces; you just see the chest down or something like that. So you don't see who they are, but they I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, they're humans. The humans are the parents.
That's. Okay, I'm going to try to erase that from my memory. Now, I Am Weasel, was that a spinoff of Cow and Chicken? I can't even remember.
Yeah, it was a spinoff. I believe it first started as one of when it had those animation shows, and they have the really quick 15-minute episodes to per half-hour block, and then this was kind of I Am Weasel started as the filler in between those 2 shows. And then I think it kind of caught a life of its own, so they ended up splitting the shows. One 15-minute the second, or vice versa, the second 15 minutes of Cow and Chicken. So I think it really became kind of a duo rather than just that short in the middle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, those are one of the early shows that I had seen on Cartoon Network, and I was like, oh, I hope it's not like this. Thankfully, it's all Dexter's Laboratory and Johnny Bravo and stuff like that. But like I said, there's a fan following, so I don't want to crap on it, but it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah, teach their own. I mean, it's not a show I watch very often or as much volume-wise, especially I gravitated more towards Courage, Johnny Bravo, Powerpuff Girls, and those were pretty cool shows, in my opinion. And that's kind of what I followed more than those two.
The Grim and Evil is basically where he made his bones, though. That's where basically that became like a cult hit. But for some reason, he decided to split it off into different shows. So, it was on for 2 seasons, and in 13 segments, and then I think it was intermixed with pilots, like Evil Con Carne, and then he spun it off into the other ones, which in a way is like creating his own animation universe.
Yeah, and I think a lot of like when it came to the Grim Adventures, I think like Evil Con Carne was like a different realm. In the show you had, of course, the human realm, and then the after realm, where somewhere like the Beetlejuice different reality where they kind of go in and have those adventures in there sometimes. So I think Evil Con Carne took place primarily in that other dimension, and that's kind of where that spawned from.
That's probably my favorite of the bunch, which is not a surprise that it was the most short-lived, because it's weird. There are these turns that the show takes, and you're like, oh, that's a little demented. That's kind of dark.
Yeah, and what first attracted me to it was, of course, one of the main characters is that the brain who's in that big bear and kind of controlling it. It really was kind of a throwback to Krang in the Ninja Turtles. So that's initially I saw something like that and initially thought, hey, it's kind of like the Ninja Turtles, and kind of started watching a little bit from there.
Well, there's a character in the DC universe that has that too, and for some reason it's not Kongorilla, but it's another one where the scientist put his brain inside of an ape, and I'm like, that's a goofy idea.
Yeah, and obviously it's been used across a couple other, not very often, but across a couple other avenues. I can just, like I said, relate that right to Ninja Turtles.
What's funny is we did the last thing we did together was the Perfect Saturday Morning playlist, and I got to tell you, 90% of the time Ninja Turtles will make that list.
Oh yeah, and I mean, especially with the long running. I mean, like I said, my son watches Ninja Turtles in some aspects now. You still see it; it's very marketable, and I mean, I know where it can hear as far as the generational differences between all of them, but that original original cartoon for me was right up there with one of my favorites of all time. There
was a guy in line checking out, and he was wearing a Ninja Turtle shirt, and I looked at him, kind of just casually went, "Arrows in a half shell," and he goes, "Turtle power." Real laid back, because it's just a generational thing. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those things where I was lucky enough to do to be really into Ninja Turtles, and then to kind of be into the Power Rangers, the original Power Rangers. That same thing, very long standing series. Of course they change it up with Power Rangers, generational wise, but very marketable. The newer figurines are there, the older ones, that whole nostalgia factor. I mean, you see somebody in a Power Ranger shirt, and you kind of give that nod of approval, and they give it back.
Yeah, I just missed Power Rangers. I was in high school by the time that kicked in, and no. I even tried watching the new movie, and everybody's like, "It's so good!" And I was like, no, not really. I mean, just for me, I just couldn't get into it.
And that's the thing, with those newer movies coming out, you always have the nostalgia. I mean, not that we're freaks, but I mean, because I'm part of them, but you have those nostalgia, people that really are trying to revisit that from their kids. Most of the time they're going to be disappointed because it's not the same as when you were a kid, of course, but they try to change it, make it adapt to the newer generation of stuff. And they kind of just, turn their head when it comes to some of those newer installments, kind of similar, like I said, to the Ninja Turtles movie. I think we discussed it before. For me, you got to kind of put a lot of that nostalgia that you experienced as a kid out of your head before you watch those movies. Because the movies sometimes aren't bad. I mean, the first Ninja Turtles was horrible, but
wait, what? You mean the rebooted? Yeah, the rebooted one. Oh my god, I still don't understand the whole Splinter needing 40 knives and they throw them around. I was like, Splinter was pretty badass without that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe, again, we discussed this, but I believe that, Splinter can learn from his master all these kung fu, the ability to be a kung fu master better than he can from a book. But, to each their own. At least he didn't learn from a tablet or something.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that would resonate.
Smartphone, just, what's the app? Ninja app. All right, got to do this move, this move, this move. Okay, cool, we're good.
There you go. I mean, I can't tell you how often someone was like, well, I looked up to see what I could do with it on YouTube, but try to fix this. It's always a kind of a dicey idea.
The grim and evil, some of the repeating voices from other animated shows. We have Richard Horvitz, who played Dib on Invader Zim. We have Phil Lamar, who is the legendary Samurai Jack in like 8,000 other cartoons. And if we did a cartoon without Frank Welker, I would be shocked. So if you are you're playing the drinking game of Back in Tunes, just go ahead and take a shot now, because we did mention Frank Welker's name. We've discovered that there's certain things that we do in every show. If every time that Jacob does an impression, take a drink. Every time he says yes, no, take a drink. Every time I say the F word, take 2 shots. And Frank Welker's the other one. If Frank Welker comes up, you take a drink.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All right, so after season 2, it's spun off into the grim adventures of Billy and Mandy, which lasted a lot longer than Evil Con Carne. It's okay. I don't think it's a bad show, but I'm a little surprised that that's the one that was the successful show.
Yeah, that's, like I said, that's really, as far as the dark realms and things like that you see in some of, the more recent cartoons, that really was a difference. It kind of, that reminded me a lot of Beetlejuice, because like I said, you have the 2 different realms that they're kind of jumping back and forth from and having their adventures. This show lasted a long time, and they made the for TV hour long episode movies type of things, and a lot of really great voice acting was in a lot of those movies and everything. That really it was interesting. I remember specifically my watching the Christmas special, the Halloween special, and every special that came up, my son's like, hey, we gotta watch it. I'm like, all right, I guess we'll sit down and watch it. So.
All of this was derived from a test show on the Cartoon Network called Cartoon Cartoons, which I think had different names like Oh, What a Cartoon and stuff like that. And most of the shows were spun off into successful series. We didn't discuss all of them, but I kind of want to run through them real quick, since this is kind of our final Cartoon Network Originals episode. There was also Mike, Lou, and Og, which I only have very minor memories of. Do you remember this show?
No, I don't remember that show at all.
It feels like it should be a spin-off of Ed, Edd and Eddy, and it was on for 2 years, but I don't remember a single thing. I even look at the animation, and I'm like, I got nothing. What else we have here? We also have Sheep in the Big City. I remember that one. That was kind of short-lived, but I think it had a fan following for quite some time.
Vaguely remember that one.
Time Squad. I don't know that one.
Time Squad? No, I don't know that one either.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, no, I look at it now, and it actually kind of looks like my kind of cartoon. It looks like a little bit of Dexter's Laboratory mixed with Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. What else we got here? Whatever happened to Robot Jones? Now, we discussed this. Me and Jacob discussed it a couple episodes ago, but have you ever seen this cartoon?
No.
It is so good. It's really, really silly and funny, but the animation style is a kind of homage to the what is it called? I'm just a bill, conjunction, junction, what's your function?
Oh, okay.
What the hell are those called?
Like the, I'm drawing a blank. I know what you're talking about, like the educational cartoon, Schoolhouse Rock.
Thank you, Schoolhouse Rock, but I can't remember that. It was ridiculous. That one's really cool. And that has a unique flavor, like the way that Courage does. There's nothing like it. We also
that really rough style animation.
Yeah.
Almost to a point where it might not seem finished.
Right, yeah, it has that hand drawn, but it's very stylized. It looks like it's out of the 70s. But the cartoon is set, I think, in 1984. So it's as if a grown-up robot is reflecting on his childhood, wonder years. So he is a basic robot, but then his father is even lower rent, and his grandfather's just one of those old MIT computers that just bleeps and bloops and spits out paper. But everybody else is normal in his high school, so everybody's just he's a robot kid, whatever. He just, Jones. He just hangs out with us every day.
Yeah. That sounds very funny. Might be something I have to go back and watch.
Yeah, they're on YouTube. Actually, most of the stuff's on YouTube. Usually Warner Brothers is really tight on what is out there for people to watch. But for some reason, their original series, they're just like, meh, whatever. Just, if it gets people interested, maybe they'll go buy the DVD.
That's funny. Yeah, I think there's a show that I caught on, something similar to that, like very similar animation style with Adventure Time that I kind of started watching.
Mm-hmm.
Drawing a blank right now. It was kind of about like some kids like being somewhat heroes in space and traveling to different dimensions and battling evil and stuff like that. So kind of the same animation style.
Is it Star versus the Forces of Evil?
No, it's not that.
Okay.
It's I think it's exclusively on YouTube. That's similar as well, but this show, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank right now, but it's very similar, like animation style wise, like the same kind of noodly arms.
Okay.
Really, really big gaps in between the teeth when they smile. Type something Warriors, Bravest Warriors, I think it is.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up. If you remember the name, send it to me because I'm curious as to if that's any good. The final show from Cartoon Network, or Cartoon Cartoons, was Codename Kids Next Door. Another series that I was aware of, very popular, didn't watch a single episode of because by this time I kind of moved on to Adult Swim.
Yeah, these I remember my sisters watching this show. It was kind of Recess, in my opinion, kind of like a Recess revisit, where you have these kids, battling certain things. Really cool, like a unique idea as far as kids being your superheroes, and they're battling the man, which is of course the parents or the adults of the world. So,
yeah.
Very, very, very funny kind of concepts in there where the man's trying to push a broccoli on the kids, and they got to come up and fight that and stop him putting broccoli in candy or something like that. So.
What's funny is I'm looking at this. It started off as What a Cartoon, then turned into Cartoon. There was like 70 pilot episodes put out there for people to watch and then decide what should become a series, and just how few of them actually became a real show.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a complete list. For some reason, that was only from that one version of it. The other ones that came out of it were Foster's Home, Hi Puffy Amiyumi, which I'm never going to watch. I've heard of it, but I'm never going to watch it. Life and Times of Juniper Lee, Captain Laszlo, Squirrel Boy, and my gym partner's a monkey, which I'm going to watch that one. That one sounds fun.
Yeah, that I've seen a couple episodes of that. It's kind of reversed where a kid is kind of dropped into like a school of animals, like animals go to the school, so he's the only like human in the school.
Okay, that's strange. Did he get sent to the wrong school?
I think so. I think it's he's a transfer student and they sent him to the wrong school. I think because I don't know. I could be wrong, but probably because of his name. I think his name is probably similar to an animal's name, so they sent him there.
Stan Simeon. So that's pretty much it on the Cartoon Network shows that we had not got to yet. Is there anything you want to say about any of these shows before we go?
No, I mean, like I said, I think revisiting kind of Billy and Mandy, Grimm, and stuff like that. Those are shows that kind of paved the way for the supernatural type of things that we see today. Because like I said, like I mentioned, Adventure Time, regular show, Gravity Falls, the up kind of supernatural aspect, and then of course Grimm being voiced by or was supposed to be Jamaican or something like that was kind of a little twist, but it's really a first introduction to other than Beetlejuice, of course, the other world and the other realm where these monsters and goblins and ghosts and things like that are part of a cartoon show. Yeah,
that's one thing that irritated me about Scooby-Doo, which is strange that the show's been almost to its 5th year and we've never really discussed Scooby-Doo, is it would piss me off that they weren't real monsters. Like, every single last time, it was like, it's Old Man Smithers, he's trying to stop us from opening the amusement park, or, you damn kids, and they take the mask off, and it wasn't a sea monster.
It wasn't for you meddling kids.
So that's the cool thing about these newer shows, is that it dives deep right into the aliens and supernatural and stuff like that. It doesn't shy away. I wonder if there's any sort of FCC rules that require that they couldn't have real monsters. Like, you know how it was back then. There was a comic book scare and stuff like that. You commies!
Yeah, and then you get those other cartoons too, where like those old Cannonball Run type cartoons where they're racing.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Scooby Doo's, like there's one Scooby Doo and like it's the real Dracula and things like that. But you see those so much less in those older cartoons, and now it's like you're not a cartoon or a reputable cartoon unless you have some kind of supernatural thing in it nowadays. So.
There was, and it's not silly, well, full on silly. Okay, there was a cartoon that I saw an ad for when I was 4 years old in an old Spider-Man comic book called the Drac Pack. And this is way before YouTube or illegal bootlegs and stuff like that existed. So for decades, I wondered what the hell is Drac Pack, because it looked like the Justice League, but just monster versions of it. They were taking on other monsters. And then I watched it, and it's silly and slapsticky, and I was so disappointed. And then you got the Ghostbusters, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, good old Ghostbusters. But that, of course, hauntings and ghosts and things like that was really cool. But I think one thing that these newer shows did that, in some instances, Ghostbusters missed was, of course, Ghostbusters were always on Earth battling these ghosts and everything like that. So I think a lot of these cartoons took it a step, further and started doing stuff in those other realities or those other dimensions, a demon world or an underworld type thing, where you actually get to see them in this world, and things are weird and different, and really sparks. You gotta either be on something or have a really wicked animation to come up with the monsters and designs and stuff for those.
Well, that's a great thing about television animation, is because it's not really restricted by budget. You can come up with the craziest things on a $1 million budget if you plan properly. No, not every cell is going to be animated, and it's not going to be 24 frames a second like it is with, films in the theater. But you can present any idea. There's no limit to it.
Yeah, even all of your crazy ideas. Maybe you should try to get them animated.
Oh my god! I remember we had in college we were talking about creating a comic book or an animated series called the Experimentals. At the time, we had been reading a bunch of X-Men, and we're like, why can't we create our own superheroes? But they don't have cool costumes. They're just like normal everyday kids on the run from the government, and they've been experimented on. And then it turns out, we took too long, and there's other series that do that. I think, they did that with Dark Angel, the TV show with Jessica Alba. They basically had the same plot. We're like, oh, fuck that up.
Yeah, and that's funny you say that, because now, you look at the more recent, or not more recent, but the Batman, trilogy from Christopher Nolan. It's all based on realism rather than fantasy. The real world, the real side of Batman, instead of these flashy costumes and this Batmobile that looks like it's from outer space. You get something a little more real, a little more something that people can kind of get invested in, because hey, I can totally see that Batmobile being on the streets.
Yeah. Also, where do they get the money for replacement suits? I always want to see a superhero that's on a budget, he's duct taping his costume together, stitching it. Spider-Man's always talking about being poor, but he constantly has a costume ready at every single, after every battle.
Yeah. Hey, that might be something you're catching on there. The superhero for the middle class person who can't afford a costume every time he gets ripped, or
he has a GoFundMe, getting him through the day. It's like, look, I can't hold down a 40-hour job and save lives, so I'm going to need a Kickstarter.
He's probably going to be some 17, 18-year-old kid that doesn't really have a well built up resume. Not so many life skills. He's still figuring it out.
The only problem is the cops. He'll have one of those rewards, if you donate $1,000, I'll do a meet and greet with you, and then the cops are just waiting there for him, look, kid, you can't be a vigilante. He's like, shit, I didn't even think this out.
Yeah. It's a really, real world look at someone trying to be a superhero.
Yeah, they never have a superhero who's a single dad. Just, oh god, I have these powers I don't know what to do with, but I can't just ignore being a hero, but I got a kid at home. Who's going to babysit? Well, I got to go off with my team.
There you go, man.
The family man.
All your ideas, yeah, you're onto something there.
I've kind of discussed this with the fans before, but I haven't really discussed it with you. But so, like I said, the Nerd Culture Show, it's going to be a mixture of old segments and new segments. I'm going to remaster some of the old stuff. So, like, I'm going to do a whole He-Man Masters Universe episode. So we'll take the very first episode we did and then talk about the movie, and then add a new episode where we discuss the remake series, stuff like that. And then sometimes we're going to mix in, like, you and I discussed talking about old wrestling matches, and I was thought about doing stuff about the old Star Trek movies or James Bond, and just kind of mix all sorts of Nerd Culture Show stuff into one series.
Of course.
Also, I'm overextended, dude. I'm doing way too many podcasts. I don't know what the hell I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's good. I mean, it's a good problem to have because that means it's catching, and you're being able to be and talk about something you're passionate about, and us nerds, like, there's no end to what we're passionate about. I mean, like, I just unfortunately visited Toys R Us and bought a Green Ranger helmet because of how passionate I am about the Power Rangers.
So you still have one that's open. So, that was a really good. Are you talking the one that's in not Salinas? Damn it. Where do you live again? I forgot.
Santa Maria. Yeah,
Santa Maria. Yeah, that is a hell of a... We used to go there for post-Christmas. And every Christmas they would have, like, the Charlie Brown and Snoopy and Rudolph limited edition toys and get them for, like, $1 a piece.
Yeah. Of course, Toys R Us is taking a turn for the worse. But, I was in there and I hadn't seen this helmet. And it's like, okay, like, it's Power Rangers. It's the Green Ranger. Like, there's just here. Just take whatever it costs.
Yeah, they say that there's going to be a new buyer for. He's going to pay $900 million. I can't remember which toy maker it is, but people are like, "Oh, we still have Amazon. Oh, we have Target and Walmart." And I'm like, they cannot match the same amount of toys. There's just no way. And it's in the toy company's best interest to keep Toys R Us going.
Yeah, I mean, especially with those exclusives. I mean, I can't find a Green Ranger helmet at Target,
Yeah, well, I would go there, and then I would find, a Gremlins 2 NECA toy? I mean, I didn't know they even made these,
Yeah, definitely. There's like my older daughter, she just turned 3, but she got really into Coraline, and we went to Toys R Us one day, and there was like a little Coraline action figure there, or with her rain jacket, and of course she's like, oh, I want it. I'm like, I've never seen a Coraline toy, like, never, like, ever, like, no matter. I mean, I've worked at Target for 10 plus years, and never saw a Coraline toy there, and there it was sitting on a Toys R Us shelf. It's like, well, I kind of have to buy it for her now.
Yeah. The problem is, I think they were too big. They took over companies that were closing during the 80s and 90s, because we used to have Children's Palace in Fort Wayne. And when they went out of business, Toys R Us bought, like, all the buildings. And I feel like they bought more than they needed because they had to fill the space. But we're in a new era where they don't need the video games. They don't need movies. And maybe they can compress themselves down. I thought the Toys R Us Express was a brilliant idea. Get into the outlet malls. Get into the regular malls, but a much smaller space, like the way KB Toys was.
Yeah, and then it's just, nothing but toys. Like you said, like the games. I mean, there's so many people out there competing with games, and now that you have downloadable games that are on, you don't even have to leave your house to get a video game onto your console. Anything disc based is starting to be something that's being an afterthought. CDs, DVDs. Luckily, they have 4K stuff, but it's unfortunately, with technology being what it is, you're seeing less and less of that. Of course, you see the uprising of, like, vinyl and things kind of coming back, or in some instances, there's a lot better of a vinyl, like, selection than there are, like, CD collections and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like that with the limited edition. That seems like a lot of movies now come out on limited edition collectors. Blu-rays, like Shout Factory and Kino and stuff like that. That seems to be where marketing is going with catalog titles. There's still going to be the new stuff coming out because people are still going to want a physical copy of that. But, like, say, a movie that's been out for 25 years, it's probably got all its initial buyers. Now you're going to have to come up with some special limited edition. But the problem is it's going to cost you $40 instead of $15.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I mean, some of that is the reason why I won't buy any of like the new Star Wars movies. Like I know it's going to come out with a trilogy pack, and it's going to have all these extra features and all that other stuff. So, that's kind of the better movies will have things like that where they can come out and re-release something in 25 years and still sell like it came out for the first time.
Yeah, and that's what I wonder about the toys. Without Toys R Us, there really is no market for the limited edition run toy. You're going to find that, people in marketing are going to go, look, we can't get this thing into stores, like Walmart, Target, Fred Meyer's. There's no more Kmart, so it's really starting to become limited of where you can go. Comic shops, maybe, and they're going to go, well, we can't do it then. If we can't sell a minimum number of this, like Rocketeer, there's a cult following for Rocketeer, but they're not going to be a large amount of people remember what it is and want a toy of it, so they have to like crank it up to like $40 for a figure, and that's not going to sell.
And then those companies really have to, they're not going to be getting those, multi-thousand unit orders that you would be from like a Toys R Us or Target. When it comes to these local shops, they're going to want maybe a case, maybe 2 cases at the most, of these limited edition kind of figurines. Like right now, the big thing, of course, are the pop vinyls. I mean, I can't tell you how many of my friends I'm like, hey, like, you kind of keep a lookout of it for this pop vinyl over there at Target. And it's like, well, like, I can keep my eye out, but, it's Target. Like, there's so many other things that are going on in this store that, one very specific pop figure is kind of hard to find. And, a little bit, I mean, for me and you, when we work together, a little inside information is, all those pop vinyls that are in that specific series, they all have the same item number when it comes to Target, so you really can't narrow down which one you're really looking for. And it may be different for Toys R Us, but you always get those Toys R Us exclusives or those Toys R Us, those one that may have their own SKU, and it's easier to find. And I mean, I can't tell you how many people like have come like saying, "Oh no, you have this specific edition one in." And I look up the item number, and it's the same as all the other ones.
Right. It's just like a big variety pack that comes in. It's what they did with Star Wars. When they reintroduced Star Wars in '95, I want to say, I remember working at Walmart and being like, I don't know which one this is in. I mean, I don't even know if we have any at all. It's all the same packaging number because it's just a variety pack. There's a Chase figure in every single pack, but you're talking like 30 figures per pack, and I'm not going to go digging around for you because guess what? I'm going to buy it first.
Yeah, and I remember me and you talk about it all the time. Those people that come in filling up the Lego bags and
the toy molesters
looking for Hot Wheels.
There's like 4 guys in that world, and they're always men. It's rarely ever a woman. There are the creepy My Little Pony Monster High guys who call in every single day asking for an obscure figure, and you can almost hear like the grope, the sweatiness of them all. You're like, oh no, dude, I don't have that doll. Stop it. Ugh. There's the Lego minifigs.
Breathing in their voice.
Yeah, there's the minifig gropers, the ones that just stand there for a half hour staring into space with their tongue out going, no. I was like, you don't know what you're feeling. You don't know. You're just stop it.
Yeah. I've done that like once or twice for my son.
But it's so hard to tell.
I mean, understandably, yeah, it's for my son. So like, I'm not buying it for me.
Yeah.
Like, I personally wouldn't sit there filling up a bag if it's for me. There's but I have been there filling a bag like, oh, my son really wants this one. Like, let me see if I can try to find it. But it's kind of it goes into the same kind of realm of dipping in specifically to like baseball games when you see the foul balls go places, and these grown men are like knocking over little kids to try to get the ball. Like, almost the same aspect of some of these toys. Like, some of these Power Ranger, Target released a couple of the throwback Power Rangers that were head flips. I don't know if you ever owned one.
No, I don't remember those.
No, there's like a little figurine where it's of course the real morphin action where it's they're in the suit still, but it's the regular kid's head, and you push their belt and it flips, and then it's the Power Ranger head, so they morph into the Power Ranger that way. It's just a helmet though, just a helmet and the head. Kind of do that.
I can see
so
that.
That's what I owned as a kid, and I remember when we put them up on the shelves at Target, like people were definitely going and trying to get those. Who cares about these little kids that want them? Like, I'm trying to get one for myself. Like,
well, there's also the scalpers. The scalpers are worse because they're not after because they love it. They're after it because they want to take away everything from everybody else and then put it on eBay. You get that with the limited edition DVDs too. Somebody would come in and go, yeah, I got to buy a copy for me and my 6 friends. You're like, you don't even have friends, do you? And why are you lying? Just say you want them to sell them. I mean, stop it.
Yeah, and you see that with video game consoles, specifically, of course, Nintendo. You see people coming in buying 3 or 4 Nintendo classics or 3 or 4 Wii's. Back then when Wii's were first coming out.
Do you remember the pallet of Wii's that we found and we're selling for $50? And some buyers just kept coming in and grabbing just handfuls of them. It's like it's supposed to be a limited edition. I mean, not a limited edition, but a limit to each person. You can only have 2, I think, and then we put it down to 1, and still trying to circumvent that. I was like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah. Some people are brutal, but unfortunately, it's all you either get the really hardcore collectors trying to get it, or the people that know that the hardcore collectors are looking for them, so they're stocking up.
Yeah. Well, I wish that the hardcore collectors would not leave a pile of garbage on the shelf. Like, you just got done facing all of Hot Wheels and Star Wars. You come around the corner 5 minutes later, and there's another pile. Like, oh, God, not again. I could just do this all day long.
The good old life of retail, right?
Yeah. I don't understand how it is that Hot Wheels has maintained its hot status for decades. I mean, they come out with a limited edition, really cool stuff every once in a while, like a movie edition car. But it doesn't sound like they do it very often, and yet it never stops. There's always these collectors.
Yeah, and it's weird because you see certain things over time just people just don't do anymore, like trading cards, football, baseball, sports cards. There's not a huge following like there was in the 90s and 80s when it comes to football cards. And I mean, for a while there, vinyl was going away, and only the people who were alive in the era that had those vinyls, kind of the ones looking for them. I mean, I can't tell you the last, before this kind of huge spike, I can tell you the last time someone asked me for a vinyl, in a store, and now it's becoming more and more like, oh, hey, do you have it in vinyl type of thing?
Yeah.
Which is great because, I mean, I own a vinyl player, and that's great because now things that I like more modern, there's a higher probability of it being available in vinyl, which not to be an audio snub or anything like that, but you can really hear, in some instances, a difference, whether it be a tone. Like, I can listen to a digital, copy of a song over and over and over again. And I know there's been a handful of times where I've listened to it on vinyl. I'm like, hey, I've never heard that melody before, or I've never heard that specific sound before. Like,
oh yeah, definitely. You hear
digital, dozens of times.
Well, it's because it's how they mix the MP3. There's other versions. Attrack was a format that was much more layered, I would say. You can hear each little individual instrument going, but when they compress it down to MP3 because more fits, it's tinny, and it feels like it erases a lot of the subtle noises, which you're supposed to hear, which the artist wants you to do. So I wonder if a lot of the newer albums are mixed solely to be geared towards the MP3 instead of the full rich sound that you would experience on even a CD, or a cassette. So that's why vinyl has to exist. It's the one where you really can just sit back and go, I didn't even know there was an oboe in this. What the hell?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
This is kind of what I want to do with the new show. This is kind of like a taste test. It's kind of just like nerd culture, everything. We talk about cartoons, but then we can go into something else.
Yeah, so cartoons to toys to music.
Yeah.
that's some nerds are, right?
Yeah, it's just it's whatever you get into. There's baseball nerds too, but I can't imagine I'm going to go too far into that. But we will discuss wrestling. See, here's the thing about wrestling is that it's kind of an not outlaw because that sounds like a redneck thing, but it's kind of one of those sports that always seems like it's comic booky and not accepted by regular society. It's kind of like nerdy as an adult to still like it. And it has all the aspects that people love about Marvel movies, and no one gives them shit. But wrestling, they're like, you still watch that? That's bullshit. I was like, look, there's a lot of layers going on here. Yes, the acting is not the most subtle, and there is a pre-planned idea of what they want to do with the characters and how the wrestling matches go. But that is a real sport. That they're beating the shit out of each other for your entertainment.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, like some people argue that it's fake, but those bumps they're taking aren't fake.
No.
I've seen in the last year, like I'm into wrestling. I wasn't for a good part of high school and some of my young adulthood. But once my kids started getting into it, I kind of got sucked back into liking it. But in the last year, I've probably seen like 2 or 3 teeth get kicked out of someone's mouth.
Whoa!
You gonna sit there and tell me that's fake? Like, like it's of course it's one of those things where a lot of things can go wrong. But just enjoying, what some of these athletes can do. And I say athletes because these guys are, one of my favorite wrestlers. He constantly trains in CrossFit. Like, these guys don't have an off season. They're constantly training, constantly lifting, constantly working on stamina. Some more than others, but these athletes are in there, doing things that to do throughout the whole year. 4 or 5 times a week. Being on the road and stuff like that. Like, it's amazing to see what they're capable of doing.
Yeah, I kind of gave up around 2000. I want to say 2002 is when I stopped watching it. I feel like it just got so big and there's so much going on that I just kind of got burnt out on it. And then I just got done watching Glow, and I watched the documentary on the history of that wrestling network, the women's wrestling network, and it just fascinated me. And they sit there and they tell their stories about how they arranged the fights and how many injuries they had. They show some of the injuries on screen. You're like, holy shit, that is real. And I have newfound respect, and it's just kind of bringing that interest back for me. There was a period though where I went to some lady's house, and this is when I was collecting VHS tapes heavily, and she was getting rid of everything that she had. She had to move, so she couldn't keep it. And she says, look, it's free. I wanted to go to a good home. And then I saw in all these VHS tapes that she gave us, like a massive collection of all the Royal Rumbles and WrestleManias and SummerSlams and stuff like that from like 87, 88, 89, which was like my prime era of watching wrestling. And that was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, it definitely is. And I think, the main production being, the WWE. I mean, they know where they've been. The nostalgia factors there. They try to bring these legends of wrestling that you and I watched as a kid. They still bring them around every once in a while, and you get those pops from the crowd and things like that because these are legends that you're watching. So there's still people that even back then are still invested in it. Like I said, I got back into it. The big thing right now, like for me, like being into, of course, that, but they're developmental. If you're not so keen as the characters, they fit a lot into a little bit of time. Unlike the actual WWE Raw and SmackDown, but their developmental league that they have going on called NXT, like that's some very quality wrestling. They got a lot of people that they sign from, independent, promotions and shows, and you see their displays, their talents. Like, it's really exciting. I mean, I in some instances might want to watch that more than what they're showing on USA and things like that. But, that's a whole nother thing to get into when we do. So. All
right. So everybody, thank you for joining us for another episode. Andrew, thank you for what are we doing this for 3 years now? I think it's been. I wish we had done more. It just sometimes our schedule just doesn't work out the way we want it to.
Oh yeah, of course. But you know me, Mike. I'm always up for it, and my nerdum. And anytime you need somebody, you let me know.
All right, everybody, check us out on Facebook under Retro Rocket Entertainment, and you have a very good night. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Comics on Infinite Earths. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm Michael, and the other side is Avery.
How you guys doing today? Happy New Year as well too, and Michael, happy birthday as well.
Thank you. I am completely loaded up with sugars and pizza, and tomorrow. New Year's resolutions don't start till the second, people, because the first is all about regrets. What did I do last night, or what am I planning on doing today?
I can agree with you on that. I can totally agree with you on that. Today is. I don't regret my decisions of last night.
My worst New Year's Eve is combining tons of Jack with Boone's, which is like the shitty wine cooler garbage. And I think it was about 11 o'clock at night, and I was at a Walgreens, and then I noticed everything was kind of turning, and I knew I was going to puke. And then I walked outside, barfed on a tree, made it back home, and woke up with the worst migraine I've ever, like just massive hangover.
I could say the only thing that can rival my worst, and I don't get hungover. I got hungover maybe twice. I had a friend, he went out to the country, and he came back, and his parents gave him an entire barrel of moonshine.
Holy
and I'm
shit.
like, I've never had moonshine before, so let me just see what it's about.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
It was sweet. We mixed it with, other things, and it went down very, very smooth, but it still had that burn to it. I don't remember the rest of my night.
I gotta ask you this. I'm ignorant on this. What is moonshine exactly? How is this different than other alcohols?
So, you know how with other alcohols, they sit there, they take time, and they know how much of the alcohol content is. With moonshine, you're looking at possibly an alcohol overdose.
Holy shit. So you're talking like absinthe levels. You're talking 100 proof or more.
We're talking 100, sometimes 125, 130. You're really pushing it with moonshine. Like, you really want to forget how you're feeling.
You may actually forget. You may actually cause some sort of brain damage, amnesia shit with that kind of levels. Oh my god.
We took shots, and I felt it didn't burn anything, but I definitely felt something in my liver that day.
I think the worst thing about the hangover was, I think like just prior to the New Year's Eve party, they were showing a trailer for Godzilla, like the first. This is back in '98, and for some reason this guy was running through the college commissary making that screeching Godzilla sound. And I have never been so close to murdering somebody, but I was like, God, my head's gonna explode, stop it. And he's like, yeah! Or whatever the Godzilla sound is. It's not even human. I don't know how it's
Whatever day you have a hangover will be the most annoying day to you. just traffic will be shit, customers will be shit, and your boss will be shit.
Speaking of, we survived another season of the holiday retail hell. I've slowly recuperated from panicking nearly every single day. How have you done?
I called out.
Oh! I did that last year. I actually was legitimately sick. They wouldn't let me come in because they thought I had pneumonia. But I was out for 4 or 5 days. And I was like, all right, I'm getting holiday pay, and I don't have to deal with those assholes? Yes!
I called up. I couldn't. I mean, I think everybody's aware of like the work situation of literally like I'll get my schedule and it says your shift is from 3 to. Let's say my shift was like from 3 to 8, but I get called in at 8 o'clock in the morning and then I have to stay until close.
Oh, that sucks. Do you get overtime?
Oh, yeah. But is it really
that's good.
worth
At least
it?
there's that. All right, we're straying off topic a little bit, but I hope everything goes well this year. I think last year was just a snide slap in the face to civility and proper behavior. So let's kind of move on from that, please.
Whew. I'm not really one that thinks that, by the year we should do. I don't think we should do better by each year. I think we should just do better by every day.
True.
But
do it now.
I do, but I do feel, if this is the start of the new year, let's do it right. Let's set it up right. And by me calling in, I think I set up the expectation of I'm not going to be handling that crap anymore. Besides, my other thing is we have a whole whole thick list of episodes and characters and events that I want to discuss, and I'm not letting work get in the way of that anymore.
That was the thing. You and I always have struggled because I usually don't get called in. I don't get extended, but my hours are weird. It's usually like the 11 to 8. And then you would get off work, and then I'd be like, just done physically. Like, I can't even talk. And then, of course, half the time you would like, well, I got to stay. Someone didn't show up. So it's been rough. So hopefully this year is easier. And I appreciate your patience with getting some of these episodes out. The one thing I was going to say about, arguing, nerd culture is kind of swallowing itself, which is weird because there was a time when nerd culture was so small. And it was such a niche that we all stuck together no matter what. But now it's like we're arguing over fucking Star Wars films need to be removed from canon. We're arguing about, the Falcon doesn't deserve to be Captain America. Oh, a woman is Thor. None of that makes any sense. What the fuck are you even talking about? This is nonsense. It's not even important.
And then with the whole Star Wars thing, like right now, it's just like, I enjoy the movies. I've enjoyed every single one from the worst to the best, and it's all a matter of opinion.
Yeah.
I feel like as the nerd culture, we forget that the number one thing of the nerd culture is you should like something because you like it. That's the entire that's the entire essence of being a nerd.
The goal was to stop getting the shit beat out of you because you're wearing a RoboCop t-shirt. Not because you prefer the remake over the original, or that you even like the remake. It's just fucking nonsense.
You're going to have fans on both sides of the fence. You are going to have fans on both sides of the fence, no matter what. And the funny thing is, we're not even talking about Batman right now, but I have to just say this. The way that the fans go crazy over Star Wars is not what George Lucas wanted to put out. He said he had an entire goal. He had the entire plan laid out before he even made the first movie. He already knew how Darth Vader came. He already knew Anakin Skywalker. We didn't. There was things he wanted to put in those movies that he couldn't because he couldn't afford to, or the technology wasn't there. And so when he finally gets a chance to, everybody loses their shit.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was kind of a segue into the storyline that we're talking about today. One of the first, really ripping each other apart over, should Robin live? Should Robin die? This is literally a thing that DC did with the Death in the Family storyline, is that they had a 1-800 number that you would call in, and it was like one number higher if you wanted him to live, and one number lower if you wanted him to die. And it was pretty close. It wasn't like an overwhelming, let's just kill that little bastard. It was pretty close. So that seemed like the very first nerd argument that I ever heard of when I was a kid. And it doesn't even matter now because they brought Jason Todd back. He's the Red Hood. I think it's kind of a cop-out, in my opinion. But, whatever. It serves a story. He's still interesting. It's just, you got to get used to the fact that no one is really dead in comics.
You do. I don't think any character has, really been killed off in a comic book. If they have been killed off, they weren't important. You're not going to see major characters. You're not going to see major plays of anybody being officially killed off. Totally gone, and you will never see that character again. That just doesn't happen.
Now that we know that Jason Todd is back, full time, it wasn't a con, it wasn't a gimmick. It doesn't take out the power of this storyline.
It doesn't. And I think what the problem was this. The way that this was portrayed to us is that we have a story, and it's about a character that is not as received as we thought it was going to be. Therefore, let's kill him off and move forward. However, people begged for him to die, and now people begged for him to come back. So now you have to find some convoluted way to make it fit together and make the same people that wanted him to die and come back to life be happy.
Yeah, it's like buyer's remorse. It's just one of these things where we're tired of seeing Hal Jordan. Let's make him go crazy, kill him off. Let's get a new one in there. Kyle Rayner's awesome. Then 10 years later, oh shit, what have we done?
Oh man. And I think that is one of the problems that I don't think nerds could really cope with, is accepting.
Yeah.
We can't accept that something is done or someone is dead or the story is over. Look at look at the Star Wars canon before Disney came through. It was so easy to get a license to continue the story on it and make extra characters and extra stories because the end was never the end for anybody. So you had all these characters and all these backstories and all these extra things that kind of made the story so hard to get into. It was just like, what's really the point of it all?
Yeah, when I was a kid, there was the comic series from Marvel continued for like another 5 years. There was the books. There was like a little spin-off. There was one called Planet of the Hoojibs, which was extremely important to me as a little kid, but no one remembers it, and it's not part of canon. And DC always had that loophole of Elseworlds, where they could do like extended universe tales, but it didn't necessarily become part of the core story.
And that is the other thing is you have cop-outs with it. You have things like spin-offs, then things that are canon but not really canon, and things that are like now what they have with Star Wars is they have Legends, and they also have I forgot what the other half is called. But you have things that are Star Wars stories, and then you have Star Wars canon. And Marvel has the what-if scenarios, and DC also has the what-if scenarios, and they also have these spin-off series because no fan, no nerd is ever truly happy with just point A, point B, the end.
Yeah. Well, does it piss you off when film franchises do that? Oh, we're going to ignore the last two, and we're going to pretend they didn't exist, and we're just going to... But no, the movies are out there. They're right there. You know, when you buy a package of the movies, those are included in the package. So you're expecting me to ignore it now? What the fuck?
Like, you know what they did? They did that with Fast and Furious because they killed off Michelle Rodriguez's character. And when I say killed off, like, she was dead. And then they brought her back several movies later, and she had amnesia.
Yeah. Well, they're doing that with Halloween. They've done this twice already. They decided, well, we're going to reboot it with Jamie Lee Curtis. We're going to ignore parts 4, 5, and 6. And then there was a couple more after that, and then they're going to do another one this year. And they're like, well, we're going to ignore everything, including the one that relaunched her in 1998. We're going to ignore everything except parts 1 and 2. We're like, hold on a sec. I need a map. Redirect me how these movies are supposed to go again?
And I think they may be trying to do that with Predator and Alien, which I hold very close. I grew up on those. Like I wasn't allowed, like as a kid, I wasn't allowed to watch horror films. But my mom was so big into sci-fi, she was just like, all right, I guess this one time you can watch Alien with me. And we would watch Alien, and I love that story. And people don't realize how thick and how interesting that story is. And with every Alien versus Predator and every Alien movie that comes out after the fact, it takes away from the entire main story of it.
Well,
which
Predator
still goes back to... Yeah.
Predator has done a good job. Those 3 core Predator movies, they're not remakes or reboots, they're just continuing that storyline. Aliens vs. Predator seems to sit outside the story, like they're just like little extra spin-offs. But the Alien one is the one that's confusing. It's kind of all over the place.
And I think with that one there was no set story with it, because when they came out with the first Alien movie, it was just going to be just that movie. They had backstory for it, and they had the movie, and that was it. However, the movie was way more successful than they thought it was going to be. So James Cameron, his pitch for Alien 2, he literally walked into the boardroom, wrote the word Alien, and then added an S to it and made it a dollar sign. And they took off with it.
Oh my god. It's weird with the Batman movies. They redo those all the time, and I seem to have no problem with it. But every time they remake the Spider-Man movies and recast it, I'm just like, what the fuck? Now I'm starting back from square one again? What the hell?
Uncle Ben is very tired of getting shot.
Man, so are the Kents. Seriously, Martha and Thomas are probably tired of having that same scenario played out, which I still don't understand. They're super rich. They don't live anywhere near there. Where the hell were they going? Why were they going down the alley? Their car should have been waiting outside the front of the building.
Just with I think there needs to be a line drawn where the creators, the artists, the writers, and the fans need to come to an agreement of saying, we won't do this if you guys will just let certain things happen, okay? We will make this character be great as long as you guys don't beg us for a sequel. Because I mean, we're pouring out all the creative juices for the first 2 movies. Don't ask us for a third.
The
Movies are sold trilogies now.
the death in the family storyline is that pivotal moment, I think, after Batman was always consistent. There were solid sales. If you look back at any of the DC 70s comics, Batman was probably the only one that still stands up. Like, it hasn't aged horribly. But it really needed a kick in the pants. And Dark Knight Returns was that massive kick into the mainstream. But, they had to do something in the main Batman world to get everybody's attention, especially since the movie was coming up soon. And I think that they chose something that was dramatically powerful and also moved the story ahead. I feel it's embarrassing now looking at it like a year and a half later they got another Robin, which is kind of like spitting in the face of the other Robin. It also makes you wonder if, Batman has some sort of weird emotional problems that he always has to have a little kid to keep him in line.
I mean, when you think of Batman, you think of a one-man army. You think of this guy that can do almost anything. Like, people literally call Batman is literally the trump card to any conversation, any matchup, because he's Batman. Now, if you add a sidekick to it, like let's say Dick Grayson, you add Dick Grayson to that chemistry, people are going to be like, that is, if Batman needed a sidekick, his sidekick is going to be as good as he is. However, Batman has had how many sidekicks now?
4, I think, if you don't count Dark Knight Returns, which is in the future, and I'm never sure if that's canon or not. So you got Dick, you got Jason Todd, you got Tim Drake, and then you got Damian, right? Cassie is part of Dark Knight Returns, so I'm not sure that counts.
And then not only that, you also have the not really mine, but I will claim her Batgirls that do come along. So
that's true.
Is Batman really all that invincible if he wants help?
And I would think that he would be held back by watching out for this kid. That's one thing that's always bugged me, especially with the newer version of Batman where he's like a one-man army. He doesn't seem like a father figure anymore. He doesn't seem like he's a tutor or a trainer. It seems like he wants to be on his own, and having a sidekick would actually be a detriment.
It looks more like a burden.
Yeah.
He goes out, he finds this kid, and then he's just like, don't follow me, don't talk to me, don't do anything. I don't care about you at all, but we're going to fight crime.
Well, also, he always gets like the grade A villains, and it seems like, Batman or Nightwing, they always get like the leftovers. Like, I don't have time to mess around with that loser. Go take care of him for me.
And that's just that I don't know. The whole sidekick thing for Batman, as long as you do have the perfect sidekick for Batman, now that I actually sat through and read through this, Batman and Nightwing would work perfectly together.
Definitely.
Because that's the perfect male, because Nightwing can take care of himself, Batman can take care of himself. But if you put both of them on the same team, now you're looking at a better dynamic versus Batman looking after some kid, having to teach kid everything I know, and having to look after this kid, and having to not be 100% and be a tutor. It doesn't work.
No. Always some of him and Dick Grayson were always on the same wavelength, even though Dick... Okay, hold on a second. I gotta stop for a second. How is it that Batman can think out every single angle, every single gadget, anything that he needs at any moment, and never stop to think, hey, that kid might need pants? What the fuck? Why?
Can we talk about this? Can we talk about this? It's Batman. His number one thing is going out in the dark. He's wearing dark blue, gray, black. His mask is menacing. His costume is thought of head to toe. He has armor. He has a utility belt with everything on it. However, he has a kid running around in a red shirt and green pants, green shoes, and some yellow drawers. Like, why?
It gets cold in Gotham. I mean, it took decades for them to sit there, and it wasn't until Tim Drake came along and they redid the costume where it made much more sense. I mean, he still has a short sleeve shirt on, which doesn't make any sense to me because Batman's thing is that everything is covered, everything is protected no matter what. And then Robin's just like, do I get any fire retardant long sleeves? Nothing? Okay, I'll just wear gauntlets then.
There's nothing on Robin's uniform that has any benefit. His cape is yellow and highly reflective. He's wearing a red shirt. His mask only covers not even his eyes. It just goes around a band on his face. I know who that is.
When he turned into Red Robin, that was okay. That was a darker costume. At least it wasn't as bright. But they ditched that pretty fast. They
did. And they also have, I'm thinking of the Robin costume from which movie? I cannot recall which movie it was.
Did it have nipples? Did it have bat nipples?
Yes. It
was
had
Batman and Robin.
Nipples. Batman and Robin. The one from Batman and Robin was a very good costume. Besides the giant red on there, it's a great costume. And the nipples.
Gonna have to deflect bullets. Well, I mentioned chafe. I mean, that's like body armor. You gotta have something there to protect nips.
But even still, with that costume, it's more like that's a better costume for Robin.
Yeah.
That, like, if you're going to be Batman and you're going to have somebody that you consider an equal or somebody that you want to be equal, at least make them dressed the part.
You know, I was thinking about Jason Todd. He was not my Robin. That was right before I started reading. But it doesn't seem like he was around that long. And it almost seems like from square one that DC had plans on getting rid of him. Because it might be 40 issues at most that he appeared in. And it seemed like people just thought he was annoying as hell. Instead of fixing their character, like, fine, we'll just give it another year and then we'll kill him off.
And they left it to the fans to say, all right, y'all did this, not us. You guys did that. It was your choice.
How could we do that? So briefly into the storyline, this is a big hook on getting rid of the Joker too, which, you know, he was gone for I think 2 or 3 years. He was out of the Batman comics because we thought he was dust, and it was kind of a necessary removal because I think at the time the Joker was exhausted as a villain and people were getting tired of him too.
And then not only that, with this dark comic, you have an extremely dark comic, you have an extremely focused Batman, and then Robin's motives throughout the entire comic was his parents are dead, and he just found out that he was adopted and his mom might still be alive. That's not anything that a child will understand. That's pretty dark. But with this comic, you have still this kind of crude, kind of immature Joker running around. So this was definitely, like you said, this wasn't just a revamp for Robin. This is also a revamp for the Joker. Like, they are literally getting rid of this old type Joker and making him as well too more darker.
Yeah, I think Jim Aparo is the artist on this, who is my favorite Batman artist. But he drew Joker in a very non-threatening, comedic fashion. Plus, he has the ridiculous purple suit. It was also necessary for him to go away. And then when I think it was Norm Bregfoyle who drew him when he came back, and he kind of gave him more of a demented look. Now, you know, you read the comics now, and the sort of sequel, Death of the Family, which was from a few years ago, really reinvents the Joker. I mean, his whole face is taken off, and he has to like paste it on. It's fucking nasty.
But that is one of the things I did enjoy because with Batman, like I've mentioned millions of times on the show, you need someone that is, I wouldn't even say the opposite, but you would need somebody to counter Batman. And with this super serious Batman that they have, you're going to need a psychotic. You're going to need a crazy. You're going to need somebody that looks like they would be threatening to Batman. And that's where we get this new Joker from. I tell people all the time, the Heath Ledger Joker persona that we got from The Dark Knight was probably one of the best ones we will ever get, because that's the relationship I see. That's exactly how the Joker should be. Not the Jared Leto and just crazy for crazy's sake, or not even the ones that we see. Not even the ones I was thinking of. This one as well too. Like we're not seeing this. I wanted that more edgy Joker without actually having him to say I'm edgy.
Joker's always been chaos and Batman's always been control. A lot of Batman's villains are control. You look at Two-Face, he has his set of rules. The Riddler, the Penguin, a lot of these big villains, they have their own set of rules, whereas the Joker doesn't, at least in our generation's version. But if you look at the one that's in Death in the Family, this is the old school one. This is the one that had a plan. Even though he was supposedly nuts, I don't feel like he's dangerous or that he's crazy, except for maybe the brief moment where he even had a reason and a rhyme for doing what he did to Jason and his mother. It's too much planning, which doesn't seem normal for the character.
And I think that's where we started to get that smarter character development as well too, because we don't want Batman to go up against a super genius. We just want somebody to be in control of the situations. We want somebody to counter Batman versus somebody to outthink Batman. We already have a villain that outthinks Batman. That's Bane, and Bane figured out who Batman was without any information, just because he's just that smart.
Yeah, and they've introduced a couple of villains over the last decade that are really more controlled opposites, like Hush. And did you read the Court of Owls, the City of Owls storyline?
I did not. Every time I see that in the store with the mask, I'm thinking, I should buy this.
I held off forever because I read something by Scott Snyder that I didn't particularly care for. I didn't hate it, but it wasn't like my thing. But someone suggested it to me, and they introduced a new character called the Talon. And I mean, it's the best Batman story I've read, probably 20 years.
Best, okay.
Probably since No Man's Land. No Man's Land was this massive epic where Gotham was destroyed in an earthquake and became No Man's Land. And it's a really great storyline that went on for, I think, a year, maybe 2 years. That was like the epic storyline, and the Court of Owls is like this long, stretching, I think 12-issue storyline. It's fantastic. With
this was also one of the few Batman comics we actually got written by Jim Starlin. And with Jim Starlin, he's written for one of my favorite characters of all time, Adam Warlock, who's also Marvel. The writing style, the way that this is presented, like I said, this was a much more mature story. One of the things, like when you first open the story up, the first thing they're doing, they're not just getting some 2-bit, gangster on the corner or something. They're busting a child porn ring. And I'm sitting there, I'm reading, I'm like, does that say child porn? That literally says child porn right here. And they're going over to the Middle East to fight terrorists.
Yeah, that's another thing I remembered is the 80s was all about either Russia or the Middle East. Now, we still see Russia in all sorts of movies, especially like the James Bond spy stuff. But the Middle East, during the 80s, there was tons of superheroes going over there for whatever reason, and all the action stars seem to be going over there. And it's been forgotten because now it's not just... it doesn't seem like a small military kind of thing where it's weapons trading like the way Joker is here. Now it's like so densely layered, and it's religious wars, and it's very complicated to put into a comic book. But it felt like a lot of stuff in the 80s was set in the desert.
And that was a nice trade-off. Like even one of the Armor Wars comics we were talking about a couple weeks ago, that even had a twist in there with the Middle East. Like they mentioned it. It was like, hey, we can't go here. But now it's Russia, now it's cybersecurity, now it's things beyond our control. We're looking at cosmic problems. We're looking at I just had the word here. We're looking at also internal problems as well too.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of it's now is like, oh, the guy you've been working with for 30 years is now the bad guy. That's kind of the tired twist. But I do like some of the international espionage, especially in this, because it gets Batman out of Gotham, which he rarely ever seems to leave.
And that's taking him out of his element. That's putting him in another environment. I mean, we literally had him going to different spots, not just one place. He went to at least 3-4 different locations in the comics, each more different than the next. We never see that. We never see Batman leave to go anywhere else unless it's somewhere supernatural or in space.
Yeah, well, I think there was that storyline where he took on Ra's al Ghul, and that was a long gap between that storyline and this one. But it is nice. It kind of gives a palate cleanser, I would say. This era is when Batman was kind of testing new stories, and I feel like the last decade they're really just stuck in Gotham, and it's getting a little old.
And that is one of my other favorite things. As far as this comic goes, I'm still getting into the Batman comics. However, this is one of my favorite because we do get to see a maturing Bruce Wayne. We do get to see a different Bruce Wayne. We get to see a Bruce Wayne that is caring. We get to see different sides of this one-dimensional character. And if you tell me that Batman isn't one-dimensional, that's kind of he's one-dimensional. But with this, you get to see you get more, which is one thing that I did like.
Well, I think it's part of it's because of Jim Starlin. I was actually looking up Jim Starlin. I knew him because he, I read Silver Surfer and we talked about him during Infinity Gauntlet, but I didn't know that he also was the co-creator of Master of Kung Fu, Shang-Chi. He's created Gamora, Drax the Destroyer, Thanos. So you know that every single time one of those Guardians of the Galaxy movies get greenlit, he's like, all right, paycheck.
Paycheck, easy going, and that's it. He's done. Oh, man. And, you know what? This was still around that same time frame of experimental Batmans as well, too, because we still didn't bring up the Nightfall Batman from with his really nice edgy armor.
Yeah, well, it's also I have that on hold, by the way, so we're going to discuss that down the road. I got that from the library. But this is before the 90s kicking the ass over stylized art. This is classic Neil Adams almost influenced kind of clean lines. Very expressive faces. The action sequences are clear and coherent. There's no jumbling around with the panels. It's old school, but it's old school that works.
Which is, and that is the other thing, with the art style that is presented, because when you open this up, what year was this? This was 89. This was almost the 90s. It still looks and it still reads like those comics from the 60s and the 70s and the early 80s. Like, it still has that art style, but for whatever reason, there is more detail to it. It pops more. The colors are more vibrant as well. That is probably, like I said, the other thing that I do like about this is the art style on it. You mentioned the artist. He did a fantastic job on this, and it shows. It really does. Like, this is probably one of those few comics that won't age.
No, and it's funny is that's when color was different. They did it on newsprint. Before, I think in the early 90s, they started slowly switching over to the prestige format, which is what we get today. And coloring is all digital. I mean, this is all hand-colored, hand-inked, and a totally different way of printing. And I think it holds up very well. I wish I could see a black and white version where I could just see, his pencils, but I don't think that's ever going to happen.
If they did, though, I think I would want to have that frame.
Well, and it's also the era of when he still had the classic suit. He had the logo, the circular yellow logo. The blue and blacks and grays were more defined instead of seeming like just an all-black suit. And it seemed more cloth, like it was realistic instead of that rubbery, almost like armor, the way it is now.
Yeah. And like I said, that was a byproduct of the 90s. Because he was literally walking around, like, one of his costume variants was pretty much metal. But now, like, that is one of the things I did like, is that he does have that cloth-like appearance that you can, and the blues. I do miss having Batman in assorted colors. And I didn't realize that until I looked at it, I'm looking at pictures of Batman now. He's black, he's gray. But this one, there's blues, there's yellows, there's grays, there's blacks, and they all blend. We don't have that anymore.
Yeah, the one thing though I'm glad that's gone is Joker's face. His jaw is so elongated that he's almost like a freak show mutant. There's just no way. I know that the chemicals messed up his face, not that much. That's like a Saturday morning cartoon face.
That's uncanny valley. The chin is too long. And the other thing I didn't like that we got rid of was underwear on the outside.
Yeah, I've never understood that. What are they thinking?
I don't. That's always been weird to me. The underwear on the outside that's why.
The one thing I want to drop real quick before we wrap this up is his long connection to Superman. I don't think there's another superhero that he is connected with. And the funny thing is, when he's Bruce Wayne in Superman's Clark Kent, they don't seem to have much of a relationship. But as their alter egos, they are like brothers.
Because that's one of the things there. Clark Kent is not Clark Kent. Superman has to be Clark Kent. Batman has to be Bruce Wayne. Even Batman himself said in his head he doesn't call himself Bruce.
That's weird. He really refers to himself as Batman?
He calls himself Batman.
That's bonkers. I never noticed that before. I've heard people say like he's left that persona. He's only pretending to be Bruce Wayne now that he's always Batman. I'm just like, well, as long as he's not doing that Ricky Henderson third person reference thing. Shit.
And I don't. We need to discuss Batman's mental health one day.
Yeah, he's gone. That might be one of the reasons why you need Robin, I guess, is to ground him a little bit, because clearly Alfred isn't working. It's just not, after decades. He's just like, Alfred. He might even be a split personality. I don't even know if he's real anymore. I'm not going to listen to him.
Alfred probably doesn't do much reinforcing. He probably enables Batman to do things. I mean, the only person that knows as much as Batman does, if not more, is Alfred.
Yeah, nothing really else to say about this. It is a very pivotal storyline. It's a very well-written, well-drawn storyline. Yes, they did bring him back, so it kind of negates a little bit, but the power is still there. I think it is definitely a necessary read.
I will 100% recommend this. As a Marvel fan, I want everybody to read this. This is I read it once we agreed to get it. I read it in a day, went back and read it again.
Yeah, it's a really easy read. A lot of those arcs, starting around this time, is when they started doing the massive arcs, Crisis and so forth, where you had to go and buy 80 issues in order to get the storyline, whereas this was just a clear cut. It wasn't even in Detective Comics. It was just 4 issues of Batman. And that was it, and you were good. And I remember being packaged up in a trade paperback, and that is the very first one I got, because if you got the individual issues, you were going to be paying through the nose.
So that's a really nice deal. Right now, I'm looking at them online. If anybody did want to purchase them, they're about $12.99. Or right now, if you prefer your comics digital, you get $5 off if you get them from Google Play.
Nice. I've tried doing the digital comics. It's rough for me, but I'm going to have to, because a friend of mine wants me to do the Alpha Flight series. And if you want to get Alpha Flight reprints, even the first trade is like $50. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do digital. No way am I paying for that.
I find ways. I find ways. With the app that I have, it's the Google Play Reader. You're able to, it reads like a book, so you can flip pages if you want. You can also zoom in on the words. You can zoom in on the illustrations as well too.
Nice. Yeah, I have it on my laptop, but it's never formatted properly, so I get like 3/4 of the image, and then I have to scoot up and down, back and forth, up and down. It's annoying.
I will find you a site.
So it's your choice of what we discuss next time. Do you want to do something? I think we've done a lot of DC. Do you want to go independent or maybe Marvel?
Let's go independent next time.
Okay.
I want to do something independent.
We also have Black Panther coming up in theaters in 6 weeks. I could go for that.
It's what we can do is this. I'm thinking, let's say right around the time of Black Panther's release, we could do a overall character explanation for Black Panther. I can try to pull up an issue or two that I know I have right now, just to get everybody hyped for it.
Yeah. Well, there was a run when Marvel relaunched the Knights. Well, just launched it. The Knights storyline in '98. I know Christopher Priest was a critically acclaimed storyline. I feel like I've read it, but I can't remember it. So I was going to go back and revisit that. But, the Essentials collection is also really dirt cheap. You can get it out there. So, yeah, I kind of want to get a reintroduction to the character because he's always been kind of a side character for me in the comics, like from reading Avengers and stuff like that, or Captain America.
But I feel here's my thing. Black Panther totally had the Infinity Gauntlet. He is not a side character.
Yeah. Which is the problem. I was just thinking about this because I saw a trailer for Black Lightning, and I kept thinking, you mean to tell me that every black character in the DC universe is treated as if they were sea level, whereas Marvel has done a great job over the last couple decades of bringing Black Panther, Luke Cage, Falcon to the forefront. Storm,
Falcon.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing with the people that the main creators of those people, they didn't want to have background characters. They wanted them to be next to Wolverine. They wanted that character to be next to Iron Man. Black Panther is the richest person in Marvel, and everybody knows it. That's not side characters.
Yeah, no, it's not. All right, so we'll look at Black Panther for February, but you want to do something independent? You got anything in mind, or you want to think about it first?
Let me think about it because I have things I want to take care of. But
right.
Yeah, let's totally regroup.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to another great episode. Avery, thank you for kicking ass again.
No problem. I love this.
All right, everybody, check us out on Facebook under Retro Rocket Entertainment. You'll find all our episodes there and our other shows that we do. And have a good night.
You too, guys. Good night. Everybody stay safe. Happy New Year's.